The following live broadcast is rated ESV-PG because, well, we're nerds. You don't know what kind of shit's going to come out of our mouths. Good evening, everybody. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about fandoms and loving sci-fi shit and geeking out over it and being a big nerd because that's what a lot of people do. So if you have anything that you love and you want to talk about, feel free to let us know. Other than that, we're just going to geek out over our favorite shit. So that's coming up. You guys ready to do it?
I'm ready.
Woo!
Yeah. Hey, that's what I like. All right. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? I still got that panel up, and I shouldn't, so there we are. That's better. All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Glad to have you here. Another episode of Your Shoulder Voice. You know, it started so simple before any of us was really born. People would collect jacks and marbles and little things like that. One of our panelists probably collected like rocks and, you know, stuff like that. We'll get to him in a minute. And then it evolved. I mean, it was records. It was albums. People just loved it. They got obsessed with music and stuff in the 80s, and comics book came out, and nothing was better. And it's amazing how your life can just turn around and be focused on one item so much that everything that touches you sees that you are touched by the universe that surrounds you, whether it be the Marvel Universe or Star Wars, because it is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. So that's what most of our panel has in common tonight. They've got things that they just absolutely love and are obsessed with, and we're going to bring them out to talk about it, what the obsession is, but we also want to hear from you. So if you've got something you're obsessed with that you think is great, or you want to talk about it, feel free. That's what the chat's for. Join us live by going to our panel, because don't forget you can join the panel simply by going to earshouldervoice.com/join. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that like button, like, share, subscribe, and follow to Ear Shoulder Voice on Meta, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're on all that. But we can't do the show without a panel, so let's bring that panel in. Our first panelist tonight, we're going to bring in, it's not going to be what you'd expect, because this is our least nerdy person. I'm lying, she's a fucking nerd. Here's Nikki, how you doing?
Hi, Keith. I'm not a nerd.
You are too a nerd.
Oh, I totally am.
You totally are. So what kind of nerd are you? What is your obsession? What do you think, if you had to pick something you think is your biggest obsession, what would it be?
My rocks.
Your rocks. Oh, okay. Well, see, I wasn't actually talking about you when I said somebody would be collecting rocks.
Yeah, I I got the coolest rocks. Can you see that?
Oh, that is cool. When I was a kid,
the coolest rocks.
I used to collect rocks like that and stuff when I was a kid a lot. I loved all the fancy designs and stuff you'd go through. And I was shells, too. And, hold on. All right, so... On that, well, we're going to bring... Fossils. Well, speaking of fossils, we're going to bring our next panelist in right now. Please welcome the King. How you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing, King?
Yabba dabba doo. He's from the Flintstone.
I'm doing all right.
You are. So, I mean, this is our standard panel. Pretty much we have you, and we'll have Jane here as well. What is your relation to this topic? Do you have anything that you feel you geek out over that you feel is just like an obsession of yours? Besides our sex show coming up.
I was going to say that.
I know you were. That's why I threw it out there early.
I've been, well, like I said, I'm the old one. So, you know, I've been through a lot of stuff. So, I mean, just recently I gave my daughter my fossil collection.
I love my fossils.
So, I mean, she's into rocks and everything like that. She does rocks because she cuts them, tumbles them, and everything like that. So I gave her my fossil collection, and she was like, oh, my gosh. I said, just think. I said, you go to get ready to buy a house, you sell this, and you can put a down payment on your house.
All right, well... That's for our viewers out there. Tell us, of course, what you're obsessed with. You're hearing right now what people used to be obsessed with way back in the olden days. But, you know, then movies came out, and people got really obsessed with that. And we're going to bring in some of our younger people, too, who are definitely nerds, starting with Jane. Jane, what's going on?
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me back. I'm doing great.
We're always glad to have you, but you're not in your corner. There you go.
There, that's much better.
All right. So how you doing, Jane? We know you're obsessed with wrestling. We know that's one of your big things. Is there anything else maybe we don't know?
There's quite a few things that I really enjoy. I really enjoy psychological horror films, and I enjoy movies overall. That's like my favorite thing. I had to represent Carpenter, which also had Rob Piper in it, so I got the wrestling in there as well. They live,
Nice.
but I'm also a huge Pilgrim fan, actually.
Scott Pilgrim?
And I can get into that during the show. But I have a whole bunch
No,
of
we'll
stuff.
definitely get them. There's a lot. We're not just going to touch on things. I just want to know what your probably biggest thing is right now, but we'll hit it because some of it I don't even get. I love a lot of things, but some are like, how can you fucking like that? Like people who like the Fast and Furious franchise. But anyway,
hey,
we'll get to that in a moment.
Hold on, that's a little.
We'll get to that in a moment. All right, but you know what? We have some actual true nerds here, and you'll remember them because the last time you saw both of them, pretty much, I believe, was the Star Wars show we did. So I'm going to bring them both in. Please welcome back Kronos and Brandon. How are you doing? Let's put you in your right places, though, because I like you better like that. All right. There we go. All right. Now I know where everybody's supposed to be. So we'll start with you, Brandon. Welcome back. Obviously, you're a Star Wars fan. Obviously, Kronos, you are also a Star Wars fan, even though I still say you've got a Star Trek name. So I'll get to that in a minute. But, Brandon, what else is there? I mean, it's May the 4th, so of course we have Star Wars. What else is there for you?
So yeah, of course there's Star Wars. Admittedly, I never dove as deep into like the Star Wars lore as I would like to. So I'm more of a surface level Star Wars fan. Elena
Right there with
talked
you.
me out of buying lightsabers way too often. But other than that, like my computer and video gaming and stuff, so I've definitely got a lot of that. Right now it's a lot of books, so like sci-fi books, and there's one series in general that's just I'm on my 5th or 6th time reading through, so
who would you feel is like your favorite sci-fi author?
Right now it's Pat Rothfuss with the King Killer Chronicles. That's the one that I'm on my 5th or 6th time reading through while I wait for book 3 to come out 12 years later. So
all right, so it's good. It's nice to find people who actually still read and stuff, and I know that sounds bad, but there is a lot of people that just don't anymore.
Yeah.
Books are hard to come by, and reading, I've always found it almost annoying to read on tablets and stuff. So if you're not one into books, a lot of people aren't going to pick it up. What about you, Chrono? How's your obsession days going? I see you've got just stacks of stuff next to you.
I am. I've got the triumvirate of collecting. I collect comic books, I collect movies, and I collect video games, and play a lot of video games. But yeah, those take up the majority. And I guess it's 4. I guess, but action figure or toys too. So yeah, those are. Yeah, it's expensive and really a bad time to be unemployed. But it's just like.
I have a question for you, and like all these people, I mean, that I see that collect, like you just said, really bad time to be unemployed. But if you see it, you're still gonna fucking find a way to buy it, right?
Oh fuck yeah! Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
We should not look at your Amazon cart right now. I take it.
Okay. No,
Did I need to buy a box set of 4K movies?
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
dude, yeah, because that's the Columbia picture set, man. That's badass.
But it
4K.
has the Social Network on 4K.
You can't find that.
So I had to. So yeah.
Social
Yeah,
network.
I'm
Okay.
being fiscally responsible, right?
That's I guess fair. Social network there. All right. So what is it? One thing I want to get to Brandon said when people talk fandom is he's a surface level Star Wars fan. I want to go with that. If people like him are often shunned in what they would call the true fans, because you're not a true fan. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's true? Do you think you have to know so much deep lore about a subject to be a fan collector who still devotes to it? You don't have to raise your hand, Jane.
Well, I didn't want to like just shout into it.
No, you
But
can
no,
still wait.
God,
You just
no.
want to wait your hand.
Oh, okay, I see.
I don't feel like I should be shunned from being a Star Wars fan because I've never read any of the comics. I've never read the Luke Skywalker novels and everything. I mean, I would love to know that information. I'd love to be able to have conversations with people about that. But at the end of the day, the amount of times that I've watched those movies and the amount of times that the amount of my life that I've dedicated to this fandom and how much it interests me and how much I relate to it and everything, I think that really is what classifies you as a fan, regardless of if you know every little detail from some obscure character's backstory.
And I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. But to a lot of true fans, if you don't know everything, you're not a real fan. And Jane, what were you going to say on that?
Yeah, I used to be like a really big fan into that stuff when I was a kid. Like I would read all the books and the comics, and I used to have like stacks and stacks of them. I was really into it, and by God, it is never ending, that kind of content. I don't even think it's possible to get all of that information and all those stories compiled, at least at like a good amount of time. It's become so much, especially now with the whole retcon and everything. So for me, I think I've learned the best thing to do is just leave it at the movies. That's me personally, though.
I do with a lot of when it comes to Star Wars. I feel the way. Chrono, go ahead.
I love fandom, obviously, considering how much I collect over the years and the things that I love, and this is not just specifically with Star Wars, but it tends to affect all fandom. Once something, geeks have a tendency of gatekeeping horribly, and it's so frustrating. Hearing people that just because just because you don't like just because you never read such and such or does it. Oh my God, it frustrates the hell out of me, and you see it when it bubbles into like the gatekeeping. It's just like, oh, you're a girl, you shouldn't like this stuff, and it's like that level of geekdom, that fandom gatekeeping always pisses me off, and you see it all the time.
What do you think creates the worst kind of toxic fandom? When you're talking like movies and books, do you think fandom is more toxic if you focus only on one segment of it, such as just the movies, or do you think it's more toxic if you know everything, every book, every story, every sideline?
I think part of it is if you think you know everything about it, you think that you are the keeper of the information, and so you're anyone that doesn't agree is shouldn't be allowed. I think it's that weird behavior.
Has anybody here ever been guilty of that? Like if somebody just doesn't know it, you figure that they're not a fan. Like as Rhonda's here, Rhonda says like a wine or beer snob, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they know all these different varieties and all this different stuff, you can't truly be one. What about you just like what you like and you think it's cool? Like, as far as like Brandon goes, I'm a Star Wars movie fan. I like the lore. I like the games. I like to see different things they do with the episodes, but I'm a movie fan. I'm a film universe Star Wars person. And like if you pick on a movie, God, we had a field day with Rise of Skywalker when it came out. If you pick on that, you get all the defenders, well, you don't know this lore, you don't know this lore. And sometimes, like I said, I feel like those people create the toxicity of a fandom.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from just taking the wrong tact to it, to say, well, you don't know this, so you're wrong because you're misjudging these things. For me, when I come across someone who doesn't know, like I introduced my mom to that Pat Rothfuss book series, and she read it and she interpreted it a different way. And now that I've read it through it 5 times, there's a lot of things that you only notice after reading through it a lot of times. And instead of taking the tact of, well, I read it this many times and I know more about it and I've read into the backstory, so you're wrong. You should take that as a member of the fandom that is more educated on something, to be like, no, this is an exciting moment, to be like, no, like, look at this knowledge, like, look at this, and have fun showing that extra knowledge that you have, instead of just being like, it's mine and you don't know it and you're wrong for it.
I get that. Nikki or Bill, with your collections being more tangible type items, to say it nicely, have you ever experienced anything like that with what you collect, or you've been showing off your collection over Nikki or rocks or something like that, and be like, whatever?
Yeah.
And they don't get it.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that? Just because it's not a big thing, how do you respond?
I mean, I just show them the beauty and try to show them the beauty I see. I love my rocks. But my family in time, they learned to love them too. So I don't really care what they think.
Pet rocks are a thing.
They're a thing. I mean, I make jewelry. Like, I've got some nice pieces. Like, I make jewelry with them and stuff. But then I have some special ones.
I think it's great to hold an obsession to something, or to have a collection, or to have a passion for something like that. So I don't see what the reason is to bring people down for it. But the truth is, it does happen. Yeah, Brandon.
So the one you showed, the rock you showed in the beginning, like what's the one that, what's the part of it, like when you try to show people this is what I find beautiful in this one? What about that one?
Well, it's like they'll look at like fossils. I love collecting my fossils. And some of these fossils, you're talking like some of these rocks are millions of years old. And to be able to find it, like I go rock hunting. Like I have been all around Michigan, all around the thumb, UP now because my son's going to school up there. Like, I put in some time, and like I feel like my effort and time I put into finding my rocks, like I've become one with nature. Like I get out there, I put in some work, and like I feed off the energy of my rocks. So if somebody can't even comprehend that, it's just not for them, and I don't really care.
Well, it's not anything that you care is going to affect you, because you still should like what you like.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder, because it can be demeaning sometimes.
Sure.
It can be insulting, like, because you are being insulted for just liking something. And it doesn't just work for rocks. You could like Star Trek, or you could like Picard over Kirk.
Yeah.
Or Kirk over Picard, or Janeway. I don't know what's wrong with you, but, whatever it happens to be. And you could be put down in a sense for stuff like that. And Bill, you've been awfully quiet over there. You got anything to add to any of that?
I'm waiting my turn, but the only thing I can say is you have to think about this nowadays, not nowadays, but, here lately, being a geek, being a nerd, being a whatever you want to call it, has went mainstream, and it's more acceptable, and it has to do with the fact of the show. And I'm talking about The Big Bang Theory.
I think a lot of that is very true. I actually think in like the 80s, 90s, nerds kind of started to become a thing. And I'm not talking like Family Matter nerds, Urkel or anything like that. But as far as
real
science,
genius.
Yeah, scientist type stuff. Val Kilmer, real genius. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, that also correlates about the time when D&D started to come like out of people's basements and being less of a hidden thing to more of a generally accepted activity for groups. And all of a sudden it was, you had your little group of people that you could nerd out with and do this big fantasy thing, and you weren't immediately looked down. I mean, you still are to a certain extent with some groups.
I still don't understand LARPers, so
Yeah,
LARPing is.
I don't get LARPing. I see it. What the sad thing about LARPing is I see it. I'm like, that would be pretty fucking fun, but there's not one. Yeah, you're never gonna catch me doing that.
I've never LARPed, but the amount of times that even as an adult I've gotten my friends together in an apartment complex and had like Nerf wars. And like we run around the whole apartment complex shooting each other with Nerf guns at 25.
Awesome. Yeah. That is awesome.
In case anybody's wondering, LARPing is live action role playing. So it's taking on the persona of a character or stuff like that. Have you ever seen
Hawkeye? Did you watch the Hawkeye TV show?
I haven't seen the TV show yet.
Yeah.
You watched Hawkeye when he goes to the people in the park. Those are LARPers.
Oh.
Yeah. They're like living it out. You think video games had something to do with that too, bringing it out there as far as like role playing and stuff, and science and getting in there, and cartoons as well, Nickelodeon stuff like Dexter's Laboratory, Futurama, like all these shows, Rick and Morty now, which because you got to be smart to get that. No, you're dumb. That's why they dumbed it down to a cartoon. All right, so you would get that. But anyway, we talked about that briefly before. But do you think that video games had an impact? And that's where mine is. Video games are a huge obsession of mine. It's not even playing them. It's just I'm fascinated by them. Role-playing games are, because the stories involved are epic. And who shares the video game one? I know you do, Chrono.
No, I agree that its popularity, especially for the people that are growing up, that grew up with it. So our age group definitely views it as that, but there becomes this, and we had this sort of discussion about video when we had the video game discussion before, but there comes this weird time where all of a sudden, you become a parent and you somehow treat it like it's a kid's thing again. It's the weirdest thing that happens, and then all of a sudden you don't understand it as a part of the fandom, and it's just like a thing to play,
Which is really sad, because video games are the one thing that actually has advanced with our generation.
True.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, it grew up with us rather than stayed the same and we grew out of it. It grew up with us. It got more mature, more thematic, definitely more detailed, lengthy experiences. People cared about story. And almost to a point that I think it went overboard because I started, unrelated to the topic, but I was browsing through some game ads that came through and I started downloading a few games on my phone. I'm looking like, it's literally, there's an arrow, hit that. And that is your entire game.
Yeah.
Like, or your game is based on adding 2 plus 3. And it's downloaded so highly rated. I'm like, they have simplified shit so much at this point. And
Well, that's partially because their range of who they're marketing likely is someone who would be at that level.
I'm sorry, I was playing Pac-Man at an early fucking age. No
Yeah,
problem.
but
There's
these kids
challenge
are
there.
different. These kids are
I
different.
think
There needs to be more strategy.
I think a lot of that comes from in the mobile game area. It turns into more of like a video game version of like TikTok, for example.
Yeah, you need quick pick up and play.
It's quick pick up and play. It's not meant to be like involved. It's meant to be mind numbing at a certain point. Instead of, you're not trying to play Halo or you're not playing.
That is it. It's mind numbing. It's occupational. It just takes you and just, that's all it does. It keeps you focused on something. It never ends. There's no conclusion. There's no story. There's no point. There's no nothing. At least I used to have to jump on Goombas when I was a kid or do something that was difficult. But I'm seeing some of these games, I'm like, what is the point? And you can't lose.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things in these games. You can't really lose. If you do, you just get to restart from like your last move half the time or something until you win. And that started because we're idiots. And another thing about, you know, play till you win, every child gets a reward, all that shit. But that's a different topic altogether.
But at the same time, the mind-numbing thing, I mean, if you've ever played like more in-depth video games, if you've ever played a long game of StarCraft, and you're there and you just numb out the rest of the world, and all of a sudden you look up and it's 5 hours later. And so, yeah, I can click this target over and over on my phone, or I can play a 5-hour game of StarCraft. And
the defense for stuff like that was way better. Because when, prior to, and definitely the mobile market, I'm not going to say this as much for like mainstream console gaming, but prior to the mobile market, the defense was that video games taught you stuff. You know, you learned, whether sometimes it was history, but you learned coordination with that. You learned reactional times. You learned a lot. And you enjoy doing it to where now it's like, we're not trying to teach you anything. But let's move away from video games for a minute because John's here. John says Pokemon, Dragon Ball was big here. Where is here, John? And still is elsewhere and coming back big again. Anybody get on that Pokemon train?
No.
I did for a long time and fell off about 5 years ago.
Why? What caused you to fall off?
It stopped being fun. I mean, I remember growing up playing every time a new video game came out or every time a new show came out, me and my brother would just play it over and over and we'd just do it together. And then all of a sudden, him and I went separate ways. And I realized trying to do it on my own, I'm like, this really doesn't have the same appeal it did because I just feel like I'm replaying the same game and they just changed some colors and a few designs of an acorn and called it a new game.
Okay, and so yours was a lot based about the people you're playing with. Go ahead, Bill, sorry.
What happened with that stuff where people were driving around all over the place to chase the
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon.
I still do that.
Pokemon Go rocks. I love Pokemon
Elena
Go.
yelled at me last night at dinner for playing Pokemon Go in the restaurant.
That ties right into the mind-numbing thing, though.
Yeah.
I will always say that was like a quick moment of peace. Like everyone was chill, only cared about Pokemon. Dude,
chill my ass! Everybody was veering away from the drivers that were playing it in their cars.
Every time,
and people that weren't looking.
Playing that game.
They're looking at their damn phone driving around.
That is
in the parking lot at the bar. They almost ran me over 3 times.
That was the only time I ever got.
You click a button.
Go ahead, Jane. You just got to keep talking.
Sorry.
I think what was really cool about it is I would go and walk around the neighborhoods around where I live, and I would meet other people around there. I would get to connect with people in real life because we were walking around. We were trying to find the same stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the type of interactivity that I felt was like kind of needed, you know.
Yeah,
And something
really.
that I kind of feel like is going to be needed again soon after like
Yes.
being in the pandemic for so long.
Yes. Yes.
When it first came out, it was definitely that was what the draw of it was. I mean, you saw
Yeah.
this random group of people that didn't matter race, creed, or color, all getting together just to find that one Pokemon that they knew was in the area.
That fucking Articuno. And
Exactly.
Well,
Snip
that was the
but-
fun thing about
Yeah.
hitting Grand Rapids. Was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
even this time of day, like right now, if there's a big gathering or something on a corner in Grand Rapids, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on over there. I'm gonna steer clear. I'm gonna look for signs or something, picket signs or whatever. But during that whole time, if I saw a group huddled around a corner on a street downtown Grand Rapids, I immediately booked it over there and made 4 friends. And I'm like, what are we catching? I didn't even have to
Right. The idea behind it was phenomenal. I mean, it really
but
was.
not
It was a great
surprising.
idea.
Yeah, but not surprising. It just took people to go crazy about it that fucked it all up for everyone else. Almost running Bill over 3 times. So
Yeah.
Or,
it is
well, like,
Walking off cliffs. But you know what? You got to blame the game too. This should have been incorporated much better with maps and safe areas.
yeah.
yeah.
It should have been. You didn't need people busy intersections and
Right.
at bars and stuff like that. Because let's face it, it's a lot of younger people, not kids, but younger people playing this game. They don't need to be in this area, and you got a lot of old people who don't know what the hell's going on and wondering why you're walking directly into the grill of their car.
Right. Well, there was a 14-year-old boy last year in Roseville. Not last year, when it was big. He got hit right on the service drive by a motorcycle playing with his brother, and it was in the middle of the road of the service drive.
Sorry.
Or it was
That's
on
okay.
the service drive ledge or whatever. You know how there's the fencing on 696?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
where it
that's
was.
it. Did that make anybody like a Pokemon fan? By the way, Ron, it's just that Jay mostly is because of your age, and I want to discuss that too because age plays a big part,
Sure.
and sometimes not. But we'll discuss that in a minute. But did that make anybody a Pokemon fan? Pokemon Go? Was there people who never touched Pokemon really until that came out?
I was a Pokemon. I'm the type of guy that once something becomes popular, if I didn't get in it from the ground floor, I don't want to do a damn thing with it.
Yes.
So there's a lot of like to this day, and I feel like a bad a bad geek because of it. I have not read nor watched any of the Harry Potter movies, and just because it came at a point where everyone started loving it, and I didn't get a chance to get into it before everyone did, and I'm just like, fuck it, I'm not touching it.
I agree with that. I still haven't seen Game of Thrones for that reason. I started watching
Me
like the
too.
first season. I figured I'd get back to
Yeah.
it. By the time it really took off, I mean, people always said, watch the first season. It's not, but wait till the end episode. I'm like, I'm not watching 10 episodes of a fucking season to watch one moment at the end of it.
Right.
You know, I get what you're going to say, Brandon. Okay, because I've heard it
Um,
before.
That's how I am with Stranger Things.
But by the
Like,
time
I
it
can't
really
get into
took off, people had seen it was 2-3 seasons in, and I'm like, you know, I'm not going to go back and watch just to catch up with all these people and see and all the shit I've already heard, you know, catch up. And then it ends, and like, I guess the 8th season was terrible, especially the finale. I'm like, I really don't want to see the show now. Like,
Yeah.
you just destroyed any chance of me going back and saying, let's see what this is all about. Okay, Brandon, go ahead and say it.
The issue is, and this is so I've watched the show probably 4 times, and that's really because when someone tells me they've never seen it, I'm like, all right, sit down. I have it on 4K. I've got the nice collector's edition diorama DVD case and everything. We're having a movie weekend, and so and when Elena told me that, we watched it all, and the first season really is. The last season's hard to get through just because it was poorly made, but the first season's hard to get through because it's just a data dump of learning people and things. Well, it gets easy in the second and third season because by then everyone's dead. You only have half the people to remember, but still.
Don't they add new people at that point?
They add minor characters, but they die too, so...
Well, I think one of the big things with the first season, and mind you, I haven't even seen it to the end, was because, like, the main character that you followed the whole season died. And that was one of the things that everybody was like, oh, wow, no way they did this. Which creates it. Oddly enough, John was mentioning Harry Potter and Game of Thrones on there, and we brought up before I brought up Lord of the Rings, too. But go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was going to say one of the hard parts about that mentality, though, is when all of a sudden you do find a fandom that is like, really, really good, and now you have no one to talk to about it, at least as it's happening. Like that happened with me with Buffy. I watched it years after everyone had already fallen off of Buffy, and I fell in love with the show, and I'm just like, I have no one to talk about this with
There's like
now.
8 people on your Reddit page.
That happens to me all the time. All the time.
I agree with that. When I do catch up with something, by the time you do watch it, no idea. But it also pisses me off. You say you like to get on the ground floor, and sometimes that's what pisses me off too, is the ground floor too, because I hate Cobra Kai is one of them. Like ground floor, day one, I watched that show. I loved that show, and I'm telling everybody, nobody ever had YouTube Red. Nobody was watching this.
I
know,
I had it on YouTube Red.
I didn't fucking know you, but anybody I knew didn't have it.
Just saying, you're not alone.
So I'm saying it, and I'm talking about it, and then finally, like, 3 years later, Netflix picks it up, and says, and everybody's all, I'm like, I've done this, I've been there, I tried to fucking tell you, you wouldn't listen to me, I hate you all, you're ruining what was mine, what was special.
Yeah.
Special.
It was really special, that show.
It was cool, and it was literally something nobody had known about. That's probably my most recent example that I knew.
Which
I'm
was
glad
cool
I know.
It was such a substantial show too. Like it's worth being on Netflix. It should have just been on Netflix to begin with, but it was the only thing that made YouTube Red even like moderately interesting. And it was cool because all of the episodes had dropped, so I just did like a week free trial and just watched it in like 2 days, and it was good. Like it was something really good. And then now I see like toys for everywhere and everything. It's like it's crazy how big it's got. Yeah, toys and Funko Pops, and they sell it now in DVDs. And they did crossover with
Turtles
Ninja
and
Turtles.
Cobra Kai. Yeah,
Ninja Turtles.
It's
Real quick.
It's become bigger than Karate Kid. Go for Brandon.
No, it's just I didn't want to cut you off in there because mine's a real quick segue of the streaming net channels that release things in episodes per week irritate the living hell out of me because it's not like I'm gonna.
Why?
I'm not. Because I'm
That's
not
how it used to
I'm not
be.
going to get rid of. They're like, oh, this is how we keep people subscribed and everything. I'm like, I haven't canceled my Hulu or my Hulu subscription in 6 years. You think just because you dropped one show all at once, I'm going to get it right after you do it? I'm not sticking around only because I have it. I'm sticking around because I'm too lazy to deactivate my account.
Yes.
You already won.
That's why I pay for 3 separate streaming services and junked cable.
Like I've got Paramount Plus right now just so I can watch the new Halo show, and I'm like, guys, the amount of other things on this, you'll keep me here. Just give me all of the whole season.
Yeah.
I don't get that. I miss an episode a week. I love that. I love waiting that week and contemplating what happened, possibly watching that episode again.
I think it depends on a show. I think it depends on what kind of show there is. Like for something like the Halo show, I think that's something that's so like out there enough. Like just drop it all there and have people talk about it. For other things like Squid Game. Like Squid Game was able to become so successful because the whole series was coming out in that format, Well,
because Squid Game had that suspense level.
It did. So I think it depends on the kind of show that exists there,
John says, saying this before the king does. Who knows? Like, the king, you're definitely getting known. Who knows the girls that played the green bitches that Kirk screwed on Star Trek? Oh, I know who that is too. I remember seeing that.
The Orion Slave Girl. Are you talking about the movie or the TV show?
I don't know if they're talking about the movie. That's the one I know. The new movie, the Chris
He's
Pine
talking
movie.
about the original series, and he's talking about Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl, and he's talking about Susan Oliver, and Susan Oliver was in the
right with you,
the
Brandon.
episode where they went back when Spock took the ship and went back, and Kirk got put in that tube or whatever, where they saw Jeffrey Hunter playing Captain Pike, that shit. Just so you guys know, John Cutter's my son, so that's why he's making smart-ass comments.
Well, welcome to the show, John. We're glad to have you. I was wondering, I'm like, wow.
You could have kept that a secret, Bill. Yeah, you could have kept it a secret.
Yeah, we'd have believed you had a fan. We'd have believed you had a fan.
Yeah,
no, the lore continues.
I do have a fan. That's why he's watching it. Wait till his wife gets on there. So.
Oh God.
That's another reason I got Paramount Plus is they have all the Star Trek, and I've never seen those before, so I'm about halfway through the first season of Enterprise. So,
do you think it makes it easier for people to become like a fan nowadays or get into this geek because they're dropping things like full series and they're just watching last minute? You think it's easier for them, or do you think it was worth the time and devotion other people did put into waiting for releases and things to come out? Like right now, let's say Star Wars movies or Star Trek, the original crew. There's not going to be any more Star Trek original crew, you know. And so if you're a fan and watch it now, do you think somebody who just streams it all really quick can come back and say, I'm a true Star Trek nerd? Somebody that's old enough to do it, not somebody who's just learning about Star Trek and loves it, but somebody that's old enough and ignored it for so long. Do you think they're a true fan still? Do you think that they know what it's like to wait?
I think if they put in the hours for it, I think if they put in the work, you know, they just now have the virtue of having it at a more accelerated type of course. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it in a way, it kind of becomes like a history lesson.
Why does it have to be to that level though? Like, I'm a bigger fan than you because I'm more loyal. I've been around longer. Like, why is it even got to be?
That's
that way?
the shit that irritates
because
me.
That is what the nerdy geekdom thing is. That's like the topic of the thing. It's who is the bigger fan, who's got the bigger collection, who's got like I'm looking at Jeremy right now. I don't know how many you have right there, but I'm guessing I used to have like 3,000 DVDs when DVDs were a thing. I don't know how many Jeremy had, but let's say he had 2,500. It could be more too. Okay, let's say he's had 4,500. Now my 3,000 is great, but the minute if I would have known him and I would have heard that, I'd be like, I fucking hate you.
Okay. So that's
like, I need more. I've got to prove that I love my DVDs more.
See, but I think that builds unity to it. I don't think it becomes a hierarchy at that point. I think it becomes a community. And
no, because the minute I surpassed Chrono and Jeremy, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Jeremy.
It becomes a pissing contest.
We like pissing contests.
Well, let me say this. So I'm a big Criterion collection nut. Like, I love collecting them because of just like the whole moniker that the Criterion Collection really has for like cinema nerds. And a good friend of mine, I found out that he was a Criterion fan, and we've talked about him very much, and we get very competitive over trying to beat each other's Criterion Collection. But that built so much of a unity between us because then we would get some of the same ones and we would talk about it, and it built a type of unity. Now I hang out with him at the bar every weekend.
Do you think you're doing it for? Do you think some people collect things for the claim to fame more than the fandom of it? Like you get one. We have a friend in common, Jane, who is really proud of his Halloween movie collection of Halloween 1. You know, and he has like 30 different copies and stuff. Well, if you're a true fan, do you need more than 2 or 3? I mean, if there's a special edition with additional features, I get it, or something with extended scenes, that's different. But the same movie.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Let me say this.
Right.
I own 8 copies of Beetlejuice.
Wow.
In different formats, and some of them are steelbooks because every time they come out, it has it's admittedly it's a bit of a gimmick, but for me, I like to support that. I like to support knowing that they're finding more features and
I will accept
more of it, and they're trying
pretty
to make
much
it better quality.
2 copies of Beta, Laserdisc, VHS, DVD, HD DVD, Blu-ray. And that's pretty much it. I will accept. UMD. And
I love the idea of showcasing that. You know, like especially at the time when I was getting into Beetlejuice, it was around a time when that Halloween didn't have a lot of Beetlejuice stuff, and the Beetlejuice musical started to become popular. So again, yes, it is an age thing, but the amount of Beetlejuice merchandise that came out after the fact, I became all over. Like I have like this one Beetlejuice Christmas wreath that like sits in my closet right now because it's not Christmas, and it's the biggest inconvenience purchase I've ever gotten. But I love it. A
true fan would not care that it's not Christmas.
That's the thing, right? It's like, but for me, it's never been much of a competition. But it's always just been like the fun. Of,
but you just said you like to showcase it.
I do, but not in a competitive.
So it is about kind of presentation, though. That's what I'm really curious about. Like, why are Jeremy's stuff all, like, I mean, not for the show, but if he lives that way, why are they all present in the open? Does he actually use those all the time? I mean, I have, like, my Nintendo games are stacked all in the open lined up. Why? Because I'm not going to put them in my Nintendo.
if I can make a comment, because I have a shelf like that in the other room that Chrono has, and for me, it's like a showcase of the kind of things that I've been able to collect, and like a conversation piece, the idea of the presentation. And for me, it's kind of like a historical thing as well, right? Because also on that shelf, I have like this mini old CRT TV, because you're not going to find that kind of stuff anymore.
Does it hurt a little bit if people just don't fucking care? And I mean that because we do. I'm on your side a little bit with this, Jane, because I do send it out for the same reason. I want people to see what I do, and what I've collected, and what I've achieved. And Brandon, you were going to respond to that, so go ahead.
I've got, so at work, I had this at home, but it wasn't doing me any good at home. So I brought it to work, and I work in 3D printing. So
I'll get back to
we
that,
make
John.
3D printer materials and the big 3D printers and everything. So we're all engineers, we're all nerds and everything. And I brought my DM screen, and I have it posted. It's on the hutch behind my desk, all opened up and everything, with the back of it showing, which is completely signed by every member of the cast from Critical Role.
That is amazing.
I sat in lines for way too long at C2E2 in Chicago like 6 years ago and got them all to sign it, and it's amazing, and I love it, and it is one of my most prized possessions. And the amount of times that some of my engineers come up and ask me a question at my desk and be like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's my DM screen signed by Critical Role." And they're like, "Who the hell is that?" And
See, but that's the thing, though, is it creates
I don't
creates
care
a
what
conversation.
question you have now. Go away.
Yeah, it doesn't create conversation because, as Brandon just said, goodbye. Bye-bye.
I think for me it creates a conversation, because for me with fandoms, I love the ability to spread it. It's that way other people have the chance to get into it as well. I feel like getting frustrated by it can become, I don't know. I can understand the frustration behind it, but
I'm with
I think
you,
that's
Jane.
important.
I'm with you, Jane. Yeah, I'm with you,
And
because
I'm all for.
But you got, okay, there's a little bit of difference, I'm going to say, Nikki, with yours, as far as what we were referring to, what we've heard so far. Yours are kind of designed as centerpieces, conversation pieces. If you're collecting rocks and stuff and jewelry, those are kind of set to be conversation pieces.
Yeah, I'm saying in general, like, it could either be an instance to cause annoyance and you're like, go away, or it could be an instance to like form some kind of like unity. It just depends on how you want to see it, how you.
It's a perception thing.
Yeah, how you perceive that situation.
And I think a lot of it for like, especially for that D&D, that DM screen, that's one of those for the people that know. It's a really cool piece of collectors items. Like each one of them asked me questions and everything about like, hey, what do you do? Are you a DM? And like Travis, who asked me if I was a DM, and I was like, I'm getting into it and everything. And he goes, all right, just remember, when they give you shit, kill them all. And he wrote that under his signature and everything. And
do you stereotype people who question it, Brandon? Do you kind of stereotype people in a way? And I don't mean that like a racial stereotype or anything like that. But you stereotype like, you're never going to get this, just go away. Or do you take pride in certain people going, I really want you to learn about this?
I don't. So I think when people ask me D&D questions, because I spend way too much of my life focusing on character creation and world creation and everything, when someone asks me about those questions and they don't understand, I love talking about it. When I talk about like the podcasts, like the Critical Role guys or Dungeons and Daddies and everything, like it's hard to have conversations with people that don't understand it because D&D podcasts are so polarizing of like people, there's really no in between of people for especially Critical Role that if you like it, you love it, and if you don't like it, you absolutely hate it. And just because of the different styles of it. So it's hard to kind of connect or draw people to those sides other than if it's just a generic conversation about the topic.
Hey, Brandon, were you a little surprised that your colleagues didn't share in your knowledge when they saw the DM screen? Or did you think that before that they were a part of the group and they understood?
Slightly, because I had conversations with them about D&D characters and different situations that our characters have been in different campaigns and everything. So naturally, because, and this is like a little bit of bias from my side, as I'm like, hey, if you are into D&D, because all of the guys that I play D&D with over the last 2 or 3 crews have all also watched Critical Role, and we've all kind of incorporated a lot of that into our play style. when I run into people, especially these guys that I talk to a lot at work about it, and they don't know about it, I have to take a step back and be like, "That's right, not everyone watches that show."
I just being like a computer person and stuff like that, I go through that a lot of times. That you talk like everybody is well informed of what you're talking about, and you have to pull it back a lot. I want to go back just to John really quick. Says that Bill's pounded stuff into his head since they found each other in the last 3 years. I just want to say I'm really happy about that, because it doesn't matter where you are in life. One of the things I love talking about this show is people getting back together or communicating, and I think that's beautiful that you have each other again. So I just wanted to say that. Also says, do you think the kids are wasting their lives playing video games? If so, to what extent? Shut your mouth, John.
Experience it. If it's for them, it's for them.
Just
think,
so you know, he's 33 years old, so
he can still shut his mouth. You don't learn that at a certain age.
But I mean, at 33, you've lived. I mean, so I'm 27, so he's a decent amount older than me, but it's still in that same age bracket that we grew up, because I was a little young for like the Xbox Live area. But the people older than me, like that was when all of a sudden it became this big networking thing, and you became to create those friends online. And instead of wasting your life, that became the skate park. Or
that's cute.
I think he's going with the fact that so I never played video games. I mean, other than when I went to the arcade, which Keith knows, Time Zone Arcade in Hazel Park was.
And you didn't get shot, so I'm impressed.
You didn't get. That's right. There was a chance of you getting shot or getting thrown out, fighting, whatever. But so my son, he got out of high school. He was in the military for 6 years, right? So I guess he's never played video games, and the only thing that he and I have ever talked about when like I said, whenever I got hold of him, 3 years ago and stuff like that, 3.5, was we were talking about different stuff. And part of his look and part of my look too is kids come home, they go in the house, whether they do their homework or not. And I've had to deal with this with my stepkids, is they get on a damn computer and play video games until it's time to eat dinner. Then they say, can we go back on the computer and play video games? They play video games. They don't do that. They don't go outside. They don't go play baseball, football, softball, basketball, whatever they got to do. And it's changed over the years. And again, that's where you're more so your geekdom comes from, I guess, or your nerd thing comes from. So
that's actually.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's actually how my little rock hunting adventures came to be, because my kids were doing way too much on the internet. So I had to make them go outside. But how can I make them go outside if I'm not going outside? So we all went outside. So.
Okay, I don't mean to do this right now, but you're a fucking parent. You can make them go outside without you going outside. My parents did to me. We had video games.
I was trying to lead by example.
I appreciate that. I don't mean that I didn't mean it bad to you, but I'm just saying. What were you saying, Brandon?
Like if my mom heard us utter, so we didn't have video games growing up. Like we had like an N64 and everything when we were little kids, but we wouldn't pick it up at one point, so she threw it out. So we were always the kids that we played in the woods. We went down the road to be like, hey, can Jimmy come out and play? And we rode bikes or roller skated or whatever up and down the driveway. Like if my mom ever heard from a different room with her weird supernatural mom hearing powers, if she heard someone utter I'm bored, if she heard us utter I'm bored, we got locked out of the house until the sun went down.
Yes.
I think it's I think the question's a little can be taken really differently, because you're right about that. I don't think kids are wasting their lives playing video games. I think parents are allowing kids to waste their lives
too many parents are not taking control of being.
And I know you make your kids go outside and stuff, Nikki, so it wasn't a direct comment towards you as much as parenting. Overall, because we'll sit there and say our kids are on the computer all the fucking time, but we're not making them leave.
Exactly.
We're like, oh, cool, the computer occupies them.
Exactly.
So we don't have to deal with them. And I think there's two folds to the question entirely. Do you think they're wasting their lives playing it? And that goes to what you were saying earlier, which is like mobile games and PC games and stuff. Giving them access to play on a phone that they always had, that is a mindless game that draws them in, I think is damaging. I think the same with a few of the computer games. Depends on what they're playing if you're saying that. As far as video games that I grew up with, I would have said the same thing for some of the early titles that were single-screen repetitive games. They were fun, they were challenging, but yeah, if you spent your whole life there, you're going nowhere, you're not doing anything. But it did bring out, like you were saying, Advanced or Dungeons and Dragons came out of the basement. It came out because video games popularized role-playing more than just the nerds. When Western audience got holds of games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior and stuff like that, it popularized the idea of role-playing. I got into certain movies because of where games took me. It lets you concentrate on finishing, receiving reward, for what you do, completing a task. There are things that I think really help with video games, but we're not using them for that anymore. We still had to go outside. At least I don't know about everybody else here, but I had to still go outside and play.
Yeah, Elena and I have talked multiple
and I
times
wanted
about
to.
how, yeah. Like,
Go
her
ahead.
and I have talked about multiple times because we're starting in the next year or so to be like, all right, how are we planning? We need to start planning, like, kids in the next few years. And talking about how those kids are going to be raised is a big factor of that. And we both agreed that we will not be raising tablet kids. Like, you're not going to be sitting in, like, the restaurant or something playing on a tablet because that's the only way I can get you to be quiet. Like,
thank God.
Like, that's not how this is going to work.
But go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, good. I was going to say, from a broader societal perspective, though, video games is just yet another thing that tends to be demonized.
Yes.
When you look at it, comic books had, back in the Seduction of Innocence, where the Comics Code Authority came about. Dungeons and Dragons had the huge scare in the 70s of demons and demonic behavior, that kind of stuff. Rock and roll.
Harry
Let's
Potter.
talk about music. Harry Potter, Pokemon
Play
has
the
been
record
considered
backwards.
demonic.
There's
rock
so
and
many
roll
things.
music. Yeah, and it's so easy to tend to demonize and easier to blame the item itself instead of, being a parent.
That's what I was.
I think
If I can say really quick, I think the one thing that frustrates me more than anything anywhere I go is the parent that allows the kid to have this very expensive piece of technology just for the idea of a distraction. I'm not a big fan of that at all.
Do
And
you-
I don't.
Do you
and I don't
believe
demonize-
that? Do you
I'm sorry?
believe that it's solely for the idea of distraction, though? I'm
I
gonna.
think so. I do. I really do. Because when I see it, it happens in places like restaurants or grocery stores or, these bigger public places. Like when I go to the laundromat, I see it, and it's the idea to make sure that the kid is occupied while you're handling your own stuff. And I understand that, for some people like that's the way that they feel as though they can handle it. But for me, I feel as though there's some sort of connection being lost between a child and a parent when you allow that to become the main source when you're with that parent. I feel
It's
so
a
that
weird
hurt.
absentee yet
You have a lot of
Yes.
parents. You have
I
a
was-
lot of parents who gave their kids cell phones so they could stay in contact with them because of the fact of what's going on in the world nowadays.
I'm
And they
lucky-
went with that, and I got to have a cell phone. But then the kids go and do what they found out from other kids and stuff like that, and do different things, play on their phone, Instagram, all that crap and stuff. So
Well,
I
well,
wanna.
now,
It's not even that.
I
It's-
had
I want to go ahead. Go ahead. One more thing, because then I want to pull a little bit away from this. 'Cause we're kind of losing the topic right now.
I was just gonna say it's the very littles that are being given it stuff, like the very littles, like
2 and 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Well, if I could just add this little thing, I feel as though I was very lucky. I ended up with a cell phone in middle school, but it was a track phone cell phone. It was nothing special,
Yeah.
It was you had to tap on the numbers, to get the specific letter in a
text.
text, and you needed minutes, And I felt as though that was good and meant that I have to have connection with people around me. I wasn't always surrounded by technology, and I think that's important for when you're
The
young.
fact that you had a phone in school, I think, is where things started to be a downfall. Because there was no place you could be without one. As a parent, I get it. You need to know where your kid is. You want to get you can helicopter parent all you fucking want to.
Well,
But
that's
the
not
thing
problem
is,
before.
well, it kind of is, because you're trying to find a way to keep track at all times. I get, from a parent's perspective, I get the comfort in knowing you can get a hold of your child. But you're not teaching them that they can survive without it.
But I had to because I had those limited minutes.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything special. I couldn't do anything on the internet.
We
with my
weren't
phone.
allowed to wear a fucking Walkman in class, and kids can have phones now.
No,
I
they can't use them
Times
in
have
class.
changed.
No, they can't
No.
use
I
them
know,
in
but
class.
I get
I
they
wasn't
have, but
allowed.
I'm saying
I
that's
wasn't
what I'm
allowed to use
saying.
them in
There's a
class.
difference.
What I'm saying is, in the event of any sort of situation, I had a phone that was not able to be a sort of big social connection type of device. It had my parents' phone
You
number.
could call and
It had
text.
my friend's parents' phone number.
Yeah.
If I wanted to talk to my friend to get together and
Now,
not make a big thing out of it. I was taught restraint with that.
I get that, but that is the argument right now, Jane. People were not in your situation. They were
I
not
understand
taught
that.
the restraint.
Well,
I know I'm not arguing
that's
with you. I'm saying, but that's where it's coming from. You can't. I mean, you're going on defense a little bit with what we're saying, but there's no reason to because you are an exception to the rule, and there are still good parents that try out there. I wanted to go back to the initial thing, which goes to the fandom thing, which is a little bit more on topic, that you had said about kids or parents buying kids these expensive gadgets and gifts. I'm sorry, I had friends that were rich, spoiled friends, and they bought them a Nintendo 64 before I could. They had a Nintendo before I did. On that, they had the fanciest Walkmans, the fanciest stuff out there, because their parents didn't not care about them. They wanted their child to fit in and not be left out. And I'll tell you right now, because of the way I grew up, I love my mother and everything she did for me, and everything she bought for me when she could, etc. She made sure I was as happy as possible, but I was not a spoiled kid. But the feeling I had around my friends, I would want to give my kids those things, not to occupy them.
I still have my CD, my Walkman CD
You
player.
fucking geek. God, you belong on here.
I got one. It's red.
It's got G version too, so it won't skip. That's how hardcore I was.
Jane just keeps popping in and out like that. Well, that, oh my God, ESP protection was awesome. Oh my God.
I got one.
How do you even know what a CD is?
Are you kidding me? I grew up on CDs. I have so many CDs.
That was my favorite thing of car rides, is flipping through the big, like,
Yes.
binder.
Try pushing the
Yes.
buttons of an 8-track tape.
I used to have a track. I was telling you, Keith, I had a cassette of the Chipmunks Christmas album. So I
Wait,
had
was
that
it an
going
8-track or a cassette?
We had the cassette of that, and then I learned about 8-track afterwards around in middle school, and then I was able to get 8-track of it.
Speaking of obsession, media formats have changed so much over the years, and a lot of your purists out there are going to tell you that reel-to-reel is the best audio, or vinyl is going to give you the best sound whatsoever. Does anybody agree with stuff like that, as far as any media formats, whether it be digital, like movies, or whether it be audio?
I don't know, because today's day and age, what they can take us, well, they can take a pure sound and make it even pure, but they can take a shitty sound and make it sound pure, where the vinyl in the old way of doing things, it was like raw pure. So I don't know. Depends on what you're looking for in sound.
Yeah, I think it's a different strokes for different folks type.
Well,
of
no,
thing.
the reason I'm asking is not so you can give me your opinion on it. It is because that is something people get obsessed with. They will never buy a CD. They will never do
I know
digital
people
because
like
it doesn't sound as pure
Yeah.
and crisp. And that is another form of a geeking out or nerdy thing to collect.
Yes.
And the same thing went with like movies. Oddly enough, like movies and sound quality fascinate me because we spent our entire, Jeremy, Bill, Nikki spent like most of our entire lives going through modernizing and making things better.
Yeah.
Better quality, better sound, better resolution, better definition. Everything was just phenomenal on that. And then suddenly streaming was a thing, and we don't give a shit about how it looks.
Yeah.
For most people, I'm not talking about purists, and we are purists, so I get that. We're going to get to those VHS tapes in a minute.
So
Oh,
your
God.
best sound quality is live.
Yeah. Well,
I've been to a few concerts, and no, it's not.
I saw the Doobie Brothers, and I beg to differ.
Okay, you went to a
Well, there's a
band
reason for
concert,
that one. Sheldon Cooper, greatest nerd of all time. Anybody get obsessed with TV shows? Sheldon Cooper is great.
Yes.
What
Yes,
did
Big Bang Theory.
we touched on it very quickly at the start? What did the Big Bang Theory do for geeks and nerds? What did it really do?
Put
Did
in
it dumb it
mainstream.
down?
No,
No, I
it
don't
didn't,
think
because you
Oh,
still
yes, it
have
did.
you still have people. Some of my friends, unfortunately, didn't understand what they were saying and what they were doing, and didn't understand the jokes. And I said, "You don't understand." I said, "They are dumbing it down for you, but
Okay.
you're still not catching it. What the hell?"
So that's what I was saying. You think it's because they dumbed it down? Elena also here.
I think it had to do with Kaylee Kuko. So
I think a lot of it did. I think it was because you had a group of. The Big Bang Theory always says because it brought the nerds and stuff into the forefront, but no, it gave everybody somebody to relate to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That I think is where it came in, and that's where Kaylee Kuko was good. That's where Bernadette was good, and the characters they added afterwards, and the comic book store guy was there was different levels and different types of nerdism,
Yeah.
and I think that's where because everybody, no matter what, has a form of that for something they love.
Yeah.
You know, they just
everyone
can't get
loved the
enough of
show
it.
because Leonard from the get go was in love with Penny, and then when Penny and him got together and went back and forth and stuff, but it had to do with the fact that you sit there and look, a very beautiful girl is going out with a nerd.
A nerd. Nerd.
Well, that brings up the weird, like, toxic environment around fandoms. Because,
Yes.
like I was saying, like I have that D&D screen at work. Our owner, our president at work, is also my father. And the amount of times that he'll catch me in a conversation with someone at work talking about D&D or talking about Star Wars or something, and his immediate gut reaction is like, "Oh, you guys are playing D&D? Like, how many of you have actually ever been laid?" And I'm like, "Really? Really?"
Yeah, but see all the nerds here laugh at that because that's
But
we
then
get
at
it.
the same time,
Because
he tries to connect with that nerdy area because we're in a nerdy
Environment.
market. But
Yeah.
then, he
Feels-
messes it up, and then he gets upset when we call him out on it. Like we released this new material. It's a different color and everything, and he called it Xenomorph because it's this weird greenish color and everything. But
Okay,
he called
cool.
it Xenomorph. He's like, because it looks like alien blood. I was like, no. It's bright green. Xenomorph blood is yellow. And when he printed the part out, he printed a part out of it to show like he printed an alien head out of it. He printed the Independence Day alien.
Oh
And I'm
no!
like,
But he
Jesus Christ,
tried.
What did you do?
No, that's not trying. That's all wrong. That's completely
Like,
wrong.
no, see that is the problem. People like you, Jane, and people like that is the problem.
No, but
When
I
you're
was
like,
never
it's not
trying.
trying, it's all wrong. It is trying because somebody's not into something as much as you are. Is no reason to say they're not trying. They're actually trying to come over your side poorly, and they suck at it.
But how'd they
He
get
did
that
the
specific
equivalent-
alien?
He did the equivalent of calling the Enterprise the Millennium Falcon and displayed it on social media.
See, that's
It's in
just
a
But
show
if you've
space.
never
They are-
seen those two things and you didn't care about them, and I know people that have never seen a Star Wars movie in their life who can't identify certain objects from it. Yes, they're no longer my friends, but I know them. All right, and I know them that never seen Star
His
Trek.
favorite movies in the world is AVP, though.
Well, then he's an idiot.
Oh wow.
All right.
there we go.
That one I'll give you, but if you don't know about it, I can understand that because you can look it up. I've done it before when I posted pictures of certain things out there for events I've done, video games, stuff like that. I've looked up, and because a result comes up or something, I assume that's what it is because of what I searched, without going into deep to make sure it's exactly the item. You know, if you looked at Xenomorph, he probably just searched alien, and that's what came up. But if he searched something like that and it popped up, he might assume that the first image is going to be his best result, even though it could be something unrelated because it could have been a title of an article.
But how'd the first
Yeah.
result get to be an Independence Day one?
Because it could have been xenomorphs versus aliens or something like that, and they use that cover photo on that
No,
website, which Google sees xenomorph as the
Google.
first
I mean, no
word.
disrespect. from it. I would just love to be a fly on the wall to figure out how that picture got chosen. That's
I have
all
no
I'm
idea.
saying. That's all I'm saying. No disrespect to it. I would just love to see what led to
Well,
it.
Well, that brings to another question. I'm sorry, Keith. I don't want to
No, you're fine.
take your for making mistakes
What the show
in
is,
the
it's everybody.
fandom. Well, like making mistakes in the fandom as a member of the fandom is one of the most embarrassing things ever.
I agree
remember
with that.
it was my senior year of high school. Me and my best friend Chris Sura were doing this trivia thing. It was finals week in my senior year. No one was taking it seriously after tests and everything, so we just had trivia or like Jeopardy in our one of our classes, and we all had to stand against the back wall and we'd read the question. We had to sprint up to the front, hit the button. We could answer the question, and this the question was Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher starred in what 77 movie or whatever, where he had to they were rescuing a woman from whatever. And him and I immediately booked it up there. We looked at each other. We're like, we know the answer to this. We got it. And we hit the button and called out Indiana Jones. And our teacher just stared at us, and she goes, if you hadn't already taken your final, because I know the two of you and how big a geek you are, I would have failed you in this class before the final. And we both just looked at each other, and it dawned on us what we just did. And to this day, that's 10 years ago, and we still were like, hey, remember that time in Kunig's class that we absolutely royally screwed that up? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, you should. You should. It should hang over your head like the sword of Damocles.
Forever.
So, Brandon, what did you bring out? I do want to see now.
I want to see the VHS. That's what I was kept wanting to talk about.
So we were talking about best ways to watch media. And music has never been my thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, well, vinyl or this. I don't care. I've got a speaker, and I like bass, and I listen to music. I don't care. But when it comes to movies, I need to find a VHS player, because I will forever and ever and ever, if I have the ability to watch these movies, I'll never go to Disney Plus, because I've got these
the original
VHS.
versions. Yeah.
Like the original where like this
They're
one.
not the original. They still say A New Hope.
No, it says, look at it.
Now you're being nitpicky.
Well, then it's not the original, because I know somewhere you can watch the one that doesn't say that.
Like, this is
Whatever. Brandon.
This is just Star Wars from 77.
Brandon.
What's up?
You're saying you don't have a VCR?
I don't.
I can hook you up. I have like 3 or like 4. I can. Do you want one?
We'll talk after.
I have 9.
Obviously, wants one.
Well, because I've got all these too. Like, I've got the original, the first release of Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
and
you
the
gotta
first,
see them in that. See, here's the thing.
Indiana Jones.
See, it bothers me that those are so old now. Because I just remember collecting them.
Does it make you feel old? Does it make you feel old?
Oh, God, it does. It's amazing all the shit you went through and all the things they changed, and things get lost forever because of that.
But you know what I think is cool, though? What I think is so cool about nerdy people, if that's what we gotta be, is it like carries it on, like it, because like here Brandon's got something from the year I was born, and I know I'm substantially older than he is, and he's
This was
like,
about 20 years before I was born.
Yeah. No, like 5.
No, sir.
What the hell? No, I'm
This was 77, and I was born in 94. So.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not quite 20 years.
It's not quite 20 years.
And
but
those few years matter at certain ages. You don't round when you get to a certain age. If you round anywhere, you round down.
Let me give you a tip, especially in a lady's presence.
Where?
For later in life, when you talk about your beautiful wife, like give her like, if she's 40, she's 30-ish.
Yeah, you round down, definitely.
Yeah. Yes.
You don't
Right
ever
now,
talk
I
about
can't-
your
right
wife's
now, I
age.
can't
Not
do
even
that.
your
Never,
girlfriend's age.
yeah, never even mention the age.
Right
Age
now,
or
I can't
weight?
round
Age or weight?
down, because if I round down, it gets me.
Actually,
into
you're okay.
legal trouble.
7? 7?
No, you're safe. All you got to do is remember the magic number 29. Every woman is fine stopping aging at 29.
Yeah.
They're good with it.
I will
That's
say
how
when
you
you talk about when you're talking about the quality of the. I remember back when I worked at FYE, I was like a movie Nazi when it came down to it, because this was back in the day when both VHS was still a thing and DVD had just started coming out, and people did not understand widescreen. And it
I
always
know.
pissed me off.
Even with VHS, that existed.
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean, the thing is,
they insist to cut it off.
Yeah.
They used to release widescreen versions of some movies, you
Yeah.
know, and those were like, are you sure you don't? And I would be I know customers hated going to me because it'd be like, are you sure you want to get the pan the full screen version or the pan and scan version, because you're not getting the whole picture? And they're just like, it's cutting off their heads on the widescreen. It's like, no, it's not. I actually
Yeah.
got to the point where I went on online and I printed out comparison pictures, and so this is what you're missing, this is what was shown in the theaters. I just wanted to fill up my whole screen.
They still don't get it though. That's the thing, because I did similar. Because when I worked for Hollywood Video, Blockbuster, and all those, I did the same thing. And everybody insisted that widescreen cut off movie. And now people think that some things shot in full screen are actually cut off too, because the black bars are on the opposite side. But I actually took similar to what you did, but I printed two items. I printed a 16:9 item, and then I printed a 4:3 item. And I said, well, this is your movie you're used to seeing if you go to the theater. Yeah. All right, fit it in this square. And I'm like, you can't. You have to shrink it down to make everything fit. Yes, technically you get more picture, but you don't get more of the film. There's a difference there. You'll have more film. And nobody gets it. They're like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Well, that's okay. I just got to accept facts. You are a retard, so buy your thing and be happy. But don't
Just
tell
buy the
me,
movie and go.
just trust me when somebody says we're not, it's more. They wouldn't say, hey, why don't we release a version of the movie where we cut shit off of it? You know, and give them less screen space. Right.
It was a dark
Our
time
new
during the
director's
early
cuts,
days of DVD.
instead of being 30 minutes longer, our new director's cuts are going to be 30 minutes shorter, and they're going to cut out the weird filler, awkward stages.
They do that too. They're starting to do that. Condensed versions. Fandom, I think, hurts a lot of things. We've talked about this on different shows, especially when we talked about movies. In today's world, in a social world, do you think fandom is harming creative minds?
I think at a certain point it helps. I mean, remember
Rise
the
of
Sonic
Skywalker
thing? Well, remember the Sonic thing where the whole fandom came in and like, we're not accepting this. Make it better, and the whole fandom came together from that in that area, and
which I love. The
production
second
team
one, by the
actually
way.
took them seriously.
I think that.
You have
But
so
do you
many people that read comic books, and they're not actually following the comic book lead, and everyone bitches about it. And that's where the nerds have their geeks, whatever you want to, anyone who's into that stuff, they say, okay, you're not following the plot, you're not following the story that was in the comic book and everything like that. And they bitch. Green Lantern, they say, oh my gosh, it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Every nerd in the world says that. You know, it's so bad. But the thing is you don't have to follow the whole damn thing, because you have to condense it down.
Well, I think in areas where they don't follow the comic books, where it can be harmful is like when something's so big, like you look at, like you were talking about earlier with Marvel, where if they were to follow the comic books, when Cap puts his shield away and everything, and he's like, I'm done, Bucky gets it if you follow the comic books, but now Falcon gets it. And it really has to take this turn of the fandom has to recognize, yes, was the comic book amazing, and was it fun to follow, and what did it make sense? Absolutely. But in the cinematic universe, the way that the universe was built, this one made sense. And you kind of just have to accept that it followed the train of thought, and it would have been a weird right turn thematically to...
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying with Sonic, but I still have the thing with Sonic. Now, mind you, first movie's okay. I love the second movie. The second movie to me said exactly, we're doing this for the video game fans. And so many things about that movie was definitely a fan film for that. But I'm talking about the fact that fans get to... Let's take the Star Wars. Like the Star Wars. Well, like the Star Wars or... I can't think of the other movie I was talking about. Where Star Wars pretty much the last film, because it pissed people off, because of the fans out there and what they put, turned it into nothing but fan service. Really. And I'm not to discuss the movie, but we lost a story that has been told over 40 years because of toxic fandom.
I think the biggest problem is companies, studio heads, what's the saying, not seeing the forest for the trees kind of thing, or the other way. I can never remember. But I think that in the quest to try and appease fandom, they lose storytelling. And that's the biggest problem. They storytelling and the story proper should be the most important thing, that the fandom, that the fan elements should wrap around, not the other way around. And unfortunately, you're seeing and I say this with love to my old company that I used to work for, but Sony has no idea of doing a good movie when it comes to comic book movies, because they are more concerned with trying to bring in the comic book fans instead of trying to tell a good story. Whereas,
Morbius.
I wasn't going to. But the only reason the Spider-Man movies, the Marvel Spider-Man movies, were good was not because of Sony's help. It was all because of Marvel, because of the work that they did to build that universe. And, yes, the storytelling itself is on the weaker side, but still is an entertaining and good, movie in and of itself. And I think that's where the problem comes in.
What were you
Well,
going to say,
and
Bill?
you have to think about the fact that when the movies are coming out, right, the writer, director, and producer, all they're looking at is making a decent movie and making money.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say.
But they're destroying a franchise for it. Go ahead, Brandon. I'm sorry.
That's what I was going to say is, when they're making these movies, it's easier for them to cater to that loud minority of hyper fans that say this is what we want this movie to be, because they know if they at least listen to that a little bit, this is a guaranteed group of people that will give us their money for it. And if we just make it a good story, then it's just a coin toss of, do people want to get out of their apartment, get out of their house, and go see a movie?
Maybe it's time producers said fuck you, and directors and writers, and I mean that in the most sincerest, honest, go and fuck yourself way. Because what made you a fan of something to begin with was the creative process.
Oh, absolutely.
Was presenting something you didn't expect or know. When you saw, and going back to Star Wars, the originals, when you saw Empire Strikes Back, no fan would have wanted that movie to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to know when to stop, too.
And it was hated upon release.
The best movies ever.
And it was hated upon release, though.
Right, but I'm not talking about that movie.
No, I know,
but all the other movies in the world, you have to stop sometimes, though.
But not in relation to what your fans are saying. And the reason I was saying that was, going to Empire Strikes Back is a good example, that it was hated. People thought it was a terrible film. If fandom existed, we would have never had Return of the Jedi. It would have never gone to that point. They would have tried to correct, they would have tried to remake the first movie, and in a sense they took a few steps to do that with reblowing up the Death Star. But they added things, and because of the creative process used, we get the trilogies, we get the series, we get the books, because you're not listening to fans. When you listen to fans, you're giving them a story they know because they created it, instead of giving them something new. And I think that hurts. I feel robbed of Halloween. I feel robbed by Star Wars.
That's what I was going to say.
I feel robbed by Scream, yeah.
And there is a certain level that fandoms still do respect that, because, like I was saying, that book series that I'm reading by Pat Rothfuss, we're waiting for book 3 to come out. He has a Q&A every week on his Twitch account and everything, and every week people are like, "Hey, when's this coming out? Are you going to write it like this? Are you going to write it like this?" And every week on the dot, he's like, "You guys need to remember, I'm not writing this book for you. As much as I want you to love this book, and as much as I want you to buy it because it pays my rent and everything," he goes, "I'm writing this book for me because this is my story in my head, and I'm not going to release it until I'm happy with it. I don't give a damn if you guys are happy with it. This is my story, and I'm going to write it, and I'm going to keep perfecting it until I'm ready for it." And those of us who really like it and who really like his writing style are like, "You do you. We're here for it when it's ready, and we trust you, and we're gonna love your story because it's your story."
almost everything out there that has made it one form, whether it be from books, whether it be even music or movies or any kind of pop culture, made it because of original ideas. I'm not talking about fan service for improvements. I'm not talking about fan service, hey, this one got a little too gory, let's tone this down a little bit. Or, we didn't like the love story aspect of a certain movie in a certain trilogy, second trilogy, or something like that. Whatever you happen to do, that's fine, because then you're listening to your fans. But when you have to give Chewbacca a fucking medal to make up for something that makes no sense at this point in time and day, you're doing that just to appease a small select group of fans where nobody else even fucking was around during that time, and nobody cared about that fucking medal until 20 years later or 30 years later, when it became a thing, when social media took over. And I think it hurts it. Go ahead.
Sorry, this one's very abstract, but
Abstract
it
is good.
relates back to that scene of them getting the medals. Have you listened to that scene without the music?
No.
No.
You can watch if you go to YouTube after the show and YouTube Star Wars medal scene without music. It is the most awkward thing in the world ever, because there's no one talking, no one's moving. They're just kind of smiling at each other and making little head movements, handing medals out for 5 minutes, and it is the most awkward thing in the world.
I'm actually gonna have to look at that. But it was things like that, and like I said, the biggest thing I think you're doing to fans, and it goes with video games too. Chrono, like the Final Fantasy remake. It was a phenomenal game. Like, what they did there was phenomenal. But because the fans are pissed that certain characters die or don't die, they are trying to rework a story, but you're remaking something that we were proud of your original work.
Yeah.
We wanted an updated version of the same story, the same craft. And a lot of reboots do that too. I think it just hurts. I think that's where toxic fandom is a big thing. And anybody that's making creative content, stop listening to people. If you know you've got a hit, you've got a hit. Keep working with it. Keep trying it. Yeah. Don't alter it, because you're doing a disservice to the people who followed you more than a service to the people who bitched about it. The people went down there. So another thing I want to go to, if we can move on. Anybody get into heavy competition as far as their geekness or nerdiness? And by competition, I mean Star Wars versus Star Trek, Pepsi versus Coke, Nintendo versus Sega, Xbox versus PlayStation.
It's always Star Trek. Always Star Trek.
See, I can't say that I have.
Picard versus Kirk.
I can't say that I have.
And you got to go with Spock, though.
You switch back and forth? I do that too, just not video games.
I always played Xbox. Always. And I always looked down on people who, I was like, Xbox is superior over PlayStation, everything, until I got a PlayStation, and I was like, oh, never mind. I was wrong. They're both fun. And then I was Star Wars all day long and never understood the draw of Star Trek until I got Paramount Plus 2 months ago and started watching Star Trek. And I'm like, this is a lot of fun. Why did I hate this just because I liked Star Wars?
Because you were pretty much told to a lot of times. You couldn't like both. I mean, that's where I'm getting at with a lot of the video game competition, the Star Wars, is because you weren't allowed to. Elena, by the way, says Coke and Pepsi. Pepsi is better than Coke. Everybody's going to disagree with me, but Pepsi is better
just so I can aggravate someone right now, ask Elena, is she talking about Coke or Coca-Cola?
She's talking about Coca-Cola.
Cool.
I don't think there was big competition. I don't remember the commercials of the Pepsi Coke challenge where one you snorted and the other one you sipped. And which one was better?
She did.
What TV were you watching? I know what I was watching.
You never know.
However, I'm going to say for alcohol, Coke mixes way better with alcohol than Pepsi does.
I will say this in terms of competition. Twitter is a cesspool, a horrible, horrible place if you want to go especially within the video game fanboys and culture. It was always crazy seeing the Xbox versus PlayStation banter, because it got ugly especially and you would see, I mean, and it happened with a lot with the PlayStation, but a lot you'd see from the Xbox side that just spouted a lot of venom. And what killed me about it is that here are these people that are so passionate about their particular piece of plastic, whether it be PlayStation or Xbox, and they're just doing it on the internet. But here I was actually literally getting paid to talk about how great PlayStation was. And I'm just like, I don't know what, thank you for doing my job. I mean, you're getting, and I would get so pissed off. I'm just like, I don't know what you guys are complaining about. I talk about PlayStation and my love for PlayStation because I literally get paid by PlayStation to talk about how much I love PlayStation. I don't know who's the bigger fool.
They were definitely big, and I mean that's no different. You said it gets ugly. It got ugly back in our day, Jeremy, with Nintendo versus Sega, and
yeah,
it was.
I mean,
and the difference is you almost were not allowed to own both systems, and you could do that with the Sony Microsoft one, even though my Xbox collects dust. I don't know. I think Sega won the fight ultimately. If you want my honest opinion. I think Sega lost the console wars, but Sega stays in the game making for every single thing, riding on their own IPs and their own arcade cabinets. They were smart to get out of the console wars. It hurt them. But they were smart to in a way, because look what's happening to Nintendo there. They're tanking under their own creativeness. But the Switch is cool.
What was your guys' first...
Hi, Drina, by the way. Hi, Drina. Game? Glad you're here.
What was your guys' first video game that you had at home? What was it?
A Nintendo.
What system did you have?
Pokemon Stadium.
Actually,
on
technically,
Nintendo 64.
Technically, Atari. Maybe?
Odyssey 2.
Oh.
See, and I still have an Atari with a Pong game that came with it.
To what?
See, the first time I had an Atari was like
I still have the Atari with the Pong game that came with it when it first came out. I played it a couple times. I haven't played it. I mean, I was doing other things. I was playing baseball, football, basketball, and stuff.
Well, video games didn't really take off until after the crash. They were cool and all, but they weren't really obsessive until after the crash and the rise of Nintendo. I liked them because I have an obsession with computers, technology, electronics in general. If I had anything I geeked out over, it's technology in general. I love how technology moves and advances. I'm fascinated with every aspect of it, more than a particular thing, but I was also one of the people that totally was a Nintendo fanboy. But I owned every game system. I would still play my ColecoVision or my Intellivision and stuff, even when Nintendo and Super Nintendo were a thing. Because I just loved it. Technology has always fascinated me. But were you a fanboy? Elena's here, because Elena says one of her exes is a big Xbox guy. He would talk all day about how PlayStation sucked and whatnot, so I'd purposely call his Xbox a PlayStation. His blood boiled and I'm still laughing. And any kind of nerd is going to laugh at that right there. That's the exact way to fucking get them.
Is that like when parents back in the day would call every system a Nintendo?
Yes.
You play the Nintendo, just put in the tapes.
Yeah.
Mom, it's not a Nintendo!
With Pokemon, be like, oh, so that one's Pikachu, right?
All right.
Everyone is Pikachu, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, though, too. That would piss him off. No wonder you're not with him anymore. Brandon can identify the differences, and it's okay that you...
Most of the time.
Most of the time. But there's, and so we do that. We talked about the games, but anybody when it comes to movies, I mean, there are actual people who prefer Dune over anything, movie-wise, or TV shows that they're obsessed with that are always in competition. What was it, 90210, and what was the Party of Five? Was that the other one that was always in competition with it? I can't remember, but different TV shows do it. Whether it's Saved by the Bell or anything like that. So has there been anything that you consider yourself still a fanboy of today? Even if you now respect the competition, you're still going to stand by. You said Yellow Snow?
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Oh, Yellowstone. Okay.
You're supposed to stay away from that, Bill.
I thought for sure you're like Yellow Snow. I still stand by it. It tastes better.
Still the better flavor.
Yellowstone is weird because for a fan base, you can actually consider them a nerdy fan base because they are watching the show. they are buying everything that there has anything to do with Yellowstone. Walmart, I think it's Walmart, has Yellowstone shirts. They cannot keep them in stock all over the United States. And it's so weird because you wouldn't think of like an old style Western show that people would be nerdy on it and just want to grab everything and do everything and act like them and be like them and stuff. So
there's a theory behind that. I'll save you guys with my nerdy boredom since I missed that show. But yeah,
Very few people, Elena, with drink beer through a straw.
Ew, I heard it gets you drunker faster.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to like really nerdy TV shows, go ahead, Bill.
I'm sorry, I was just going to tell Elena, I drink my alcohol and everything else I drink through a straw because I have sensitive teeth in the front and I would be screaming, so.
Don't you feel terrible, Elena?
Way to go.
Now she's like,
no, it's all right.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I have to say, hang on, I got to say one more thing.
No, never mind. Bill's not done.
All right, I got to say one more thing, just because, and then when I say this, and I'll explain why. White trash Christmas, and because of I saying that is because John Cutter made a remark on here and said bitches, and they just took him off and dropped him out. He just sent me a text message and goes, they just shut me down. I was like, what? He goes, because
they
of that
did?
comment I made. Yeah.
Sheldon Cooper, which one did he make?
So there was he made the comment about the Kirk.
Captain Kirk and the green bitches.
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube did that, though. Facebook doesn't. He was on YouTube.
YouTube just dropped his ass.
Wow, YouTube's usually pretty good with most of the stuff.
Yeah.
God, they have such good algorithms on here, don't they?
Jimmy Carr says all kinds of crazy shit all the fucking time. So I'm like,
it's really weird they do, because we get like shit on it all the time on here that I gotta manually delete because YouTube doesn't about fuck me and my sexy at xxx.stickitinmyass.org or whatever.
What?
Yeah, we always get we always get stuff like up on there, and I have to delete them because Xbox doesn't. But yeah, thank you for removing John for talking about the terrible, terrible Star Trek episode. It's ridiculous. I didn't know he got moved.
It's so weird because we talk about whatever we want to on here, and we say whatever we want, and because you and I have both, after they knocked me off for saying white trash Christmas when I typed it in the chat, they don't do anything now, so.
Huh. It gets bad. What were you going to say, Brandon?
But like when it comes to TV shows and like getting really nerdy with it, like I think when it comes to fights and competitiveness, I think the one time, and there obviously there are exceptions to the rule. There's always areas in this environment that people get into arguments too. But I think one of the more cohesive places, at least that I've seen when it comes to nerdy TV shows, is anime.
Oh gosh, they are
right below you.
Yes.
That, like, as someone who got into
What did
anime
I just
probably
come back
4 or
to?
5 years ago, and
Anime.
groups,
Oh, God.
we're talking about how people who like TV shows kind of go to war with each other, because like we did consoles of like Xbox versus PlayStation, but then shows that didn't really like each other, fandoms of shows that didn't like each other. But coming into the anime like fandom and liking different animes and everything, having conversations with people that like anime, I've never gotten into a conversation with someone and said, I love this anime, and immediately gotten railed for liking that anime. Everyone's like, oh, okay, like I didn't like this, but I did like this, but if you like that, you might like this, and all of a sudden it becomes this awesome like
rabbit hole of
like,
information.
right, watch this, watch this, watch this.
I know
other
that
than if
just
you're-
Are you
from
talking about
researching
regular
anime for a
or
friend.
anime
I
porn?
add a whole bunch of different things that lead to a bunch of other
That's a
stuff.
completely
Talking about
different hole to
regular
drop
anime
down.
or anime
Yes.
porn. So
I haven't gotten
That's a
that far
completely
down
different
the
hole,
road.
Bill.
So aside from like media pop culture, they're not the only things that people geek out and become fans of. Anybody ever have it with toys, food, obsession? I mean, literally, people will drive miles for a chili cheese burrito. I actually would if I knew where one was. But like toys, food, anything like that. Does anybody have those kind, or wrestling, or a particular item that nobody thinks is cool, or
The amount
something
of
like that. Or
buttons
so
on
when I
things
say
that
nobody, I
happened
mean
as a kid.
select small group.
I was gonna ask Jane,
Wait,
what are those? What are the belts? Which ones are they?
Yeah. Okay. So
I want to go
from
back to yours, Brandon, in a minute. Go ahead.
what are we, so from this one here, this is an old from the 2010s. This is a tag team belt. So when the
From the
WWE
2010s. Wow.
so when
Going way
Fuck off, Jane.
so when this belt was around, there was only one pair of tag belts. Now there's two for both for Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
This is the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This has changed designs a million times before. This has been the design that they've been doing ever since the spinner belt that was around like 2008, 2009 with Summer of Punk. Maybe that was actually even later. I couldn't say because you have to think about 2015. Anyway, this has been the belt ever since then. And then that is the newest version of the Intercontinental Championship.
Okay.
The Intercontinental Championship is amazing because that was one that was still actually part of a local wrestling company. And then as the WWF started being formed by Vince McMahon Sr., and he started to acquire all these different local companies to create the WWF, that was one of the belts that got to survive. And it's changed its look over the years, and this is the latest look since 2009.
It doesn't matter. It's old as fuck. I mean, 2009. I mean, jeez.
maybe around 2020. I never said it was old. Well, here's
Yes, you did. It's really old back in the 2010s. Fuck off.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Whatever.
You're sitting here
Wait,
talking, and the guys are here watching big time wrestling.
If that's the only part that you're getting from this, come on.
That's because what you started with. That was it.
Listen.
You lost me at
Here's
2010.
the point.
Listen, Linda,
Here's the point.
listen.
This is when oh my god, the Shield was around. That was Roman Reigns and John Moxley, which was Dean Ambrose and Tyler Black, Seth Rollins.
That's geekdom over there.
I love wrestling.
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
Look, I understand.
And that's the
I know,
point.
Listen,
It's stupid as hell, though.
that's the thing. Well, here's the big thing. And I made
The thing. I thought you were going to defend that.
no.
It's absurd.
Wrestling, hold on.
The reason I'm saying it's stupid is because I want to. That's how do you respond to that? I mean, wrestling is hard to do because there's a whole bunch of people that follow it. If you don't think it's real, I respect your fandom.
Here's the beauty about wrestling, and I posted a video of this on YouTube. I had Keith watch it. Here's the thing. It's not fake necessarily.
Hey, you talk your own thing. Me and Nikki are talking separate.
It's scripted, though, right?
It's
scripted.
predetermined. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hear me out. So before the wrestlers go out, when the match card's being made, at least for the WWE, I can't speak for any other company, but I know a lot about the WWE, how they book things. They're told, like, hey, this is the type of match you will be having. This is how long that you will have out there. Like, you'll have, 5 minutes to 30 minutes, That's about standard. Sometimes they're told you have to be out there and wrestle for 40 minutes. And this is who the winner is going to be. Go. And that's it.
That's called scripted.
It's still
called
fake.
scripted.
That's improv is what you're looking for.
Yes,
It's
improv. But here's the thing. Here's why I don't.
It's hands-on theater.
Hold on. This is why I have the issue with calling it fake. I believe it's fake in the sense of saying, hold on. The way how you're seeing it as fake is the idea of who these characters are.
I haven't watched it since the old days back in 2010, so you got to refresh me.
The thing that I say,
Big time wrestling.
the issue that I have about calling it fake is the fact that a lot of these wrestlers are putting their bodies at risk, even when they're doing this stuff. It's not like a movie where you.
So are stuntmen, but the stunts they're performing are still fake stunts. They're doing them in a way they seem real.
But they're
And
still
that is
putting their
acting.
bodies but they're
I
still
get where
putting
you're
their
coming-
bodies in danger.
They
That's
are
what
still in danger, but because you're doing something in danger doesn't make the act you're doing real. They are professional stunt people. And I'm not
When you have a
saying that
script,
it's
you're
not
not in
entertaining.
danger.
Here's the thing. I think when you say when you tell a wrestler fan the word wrestling is fake, it's coming from the idea of, yes, we understand, we know that people who are supposed to win are supposed to win. We understand that when they go in and they do the punches, they're stomping on the canvas. We know that they're not actually punching. But it's issues like with Jeff Hardy when he climbs on top of like this 2-story like building and he jumps and he falls onto his back. It doesn't fucking matter if there's a launch pad under there. It's 2 fucking stories. That is
Yeah, but the fact that you believe that they do that and survive and it's not fake scripted or stuntman is where the issue comes in. And they can do this on a regular basis. Now, this is how you piss off a fan.
I think
when you got a guy
is that what you're building this up to?
5'11",
I feel as though
when you got a guy 5'11" and he beats up a guy that's 6'9", that ain't gonna happen in real life. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that those of us who call wrestling fake, because I'm not gonna lie, it's come out of my mouth before. I understand what you're saying, Jane, where like the stunts really can hurt people, and I think along the same lines, it's like trying to call theater like fake movies, like just because it's not like an original story doesn't make it any less real. But I think the big thing where those of us who call wrestling fake isn't more from the stunts are fake or the punches are fake or everything, whatever they might be. It's the competition is fake. Where if we're watching MMA or something, whenever someone throws a punch or something, their intention is to put the other guy in his ass and knock him out.
Here's the issue. I disagree with that as well. I disagree with that as well in the sakes of how a lot of the stuff is handled from a business perspective. A great story that I can think of to use as an example is the existence of the Daniel Bryan story and the creation now of AEW. For Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, he was a wrestler that came from the independent scene from around Japan and local stuff, nothing really big. And when he finally made his way to the main roster, which there's a lot of stuff in between that as well, Vince McMahon openly has said, and this is stuff that's not part of the script, that he doesn't see Daniel Bryan as the type of talent that he wants as the face of his company. And that shows through the history of the type of people that are seen as the main event type, like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, or even nowadays.
But here's the thing: when people hold on, I'm going to interrupt you on there because you're on your little fandom thing, which I think is awesome. That was my point of bringing it up, was how passionate people get on this. Because when I asked earlier if anybody ever got really upset or anything about stuff like that or really defensive, not many people spoke up at all. But yet here you are.
Well, I think my issue is the fact that, from what I can tell, I'm the only person here in this room that actually, or in this chat, that watch wrestling still to this day. Not to the point of ever.
I love wrestling, but there's a difference. Yeah. We accepted at a point that wrestling is not the most real form of entertainment out there or whatever. It's just for entertainment, and we still like it. I've never once said I wasn't a wrestling fan. I was. And I got into it. Now, don't get me wrong, that was in ancient times, like 2009, But I was a wrestling fan as well. I support it, but the lengths people go to defend their passions was the point. When people say that it's fake, you're taking a definition of fake and wanting it to suit your definition of what we're referring to is that it's scripted. But that's no different than saying a movie already has an end, or you go to see an improv act, they give you a beginning and an end and say what ensues. It's still fake in there, though. They're coming up with things to do. Everything they do is created for safety reasons. Nobody is truly in danger with the exception of a stunt gone wrong.
Let me tell you a bit about a wrestler named Mick Foley.
Hold on, I want to hear Brandon's question first. Before you do that, I want to hear Brandon's question, because Brandon was going to say something, and then you can tell about Mick Foley.
Well, it wasn't really a question. It was more of it goes back to the whole, you take it out of a fighting sport, and I guess it's kind of still a fighting sport, but football. Football, we recognize as, in the NFL, a real... we call it real. We won't call an NFL game fake like we would WWE wrestling. But at the end of the day, regardless of if the tackles are real, the sacks are real, the throws are real, and everything, and there is the ability for these guys to get hurt out there. If at the end of the day we knew that the winner was predetermined, we would still call it fake. And I think that's where the big thing comes from, is if everyone in the industry and everyone who watches and pays close attention to the industry knows that the winner is predetermined, I think that's where that comes from.
Okay,
You
what
beat
if
me. I think Brandon just won the argument for me because you beat me with what I said. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
That's a fantastic way to
that's what
put
I was
it.
going to say. So,
But what if
Go
I
ahead, Nikki.
suggest? What if I just for fun? What if I put it out there and suggested to you the possibility that maybe all sports are predetermined, and not everybody's storyline is so out there enough for people to realize it's predetermined.
Because,
What if
Nikki, you had your chance on Wednesday to be on the conspiracy show, and where were you? So, no.
Steve,
All right.
Steve, just knock her off of
That's a
there. Knock her off of there,
conspiracy.
Steve.
That's a conspiracy. But no, if they all were predetermined, you're saying if, like, we accepted the fact that they were predetermined, such as wrestling. Is that what you're saying?
yeah. Just never mind.
Well, it-
No, no, no,
Moving
you're
on.
right.
No,
You're
moving
right.
on.
No,
No,
you're
moving
right.
on.
So in
Moving
history,
on. I'd rather move on.
No,
in history,
no.
we've had times that
I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
They do a World Series, and college basketball players have shaved points, but that doesn't make it fake
No,
in a point of to what you're
No, I
looking at. You know what I'm
understand.
saying?
I'm just saying from the perspective of like other people may call it could call football fake if they looked at it from a point of view. It could be predetermined, or
Yeah.
does betting affect things as somebody being swayed out on the field? Like there's a million different things.
No, I agree with what you're saying, actually, and it does apply to what Jane is saying, that if it is predetermined, it would, and that's what Brandon said, I think put in the best perspective, that it would be called fake by everybody. Because for the most part, people don't go to anything to see the middle. They go to see the start and the outcome. Even if they miss part, that's what they go to see. So if you take one of those things and you say one of these things is not authentic, you've created a fake event, a fake item, and that goes with
Honestly,
sports too.
I'd be more happy if I knew the NFL was predetermined, so I'd stop hoping for the Lions to win every once in a while. I would just
Right.
understand that
That's
it's
your own fault. That
predetermined.
is your own fault. You know better.
But let me say,
I want to say something. I want to say something so Jane knows. All right, so I'm an old man, and I grew up. It was big time wrestling down at Cobo Arena. All right, and it was the wrestling in the United States at the point in time when it came out. And the thing was, even though the people knew it, I mean, they still loved it. They went there and they, applauded for who they wanted to win. But it was known even back then as fake because you had guys busting other guys in the head with fake blood capsules and then open hand and smacking them in the head, and all of a sudden their head blows open. You had the Sheik, who was the original Sheik, threw fire in the ring, okay? Thought process in life is there's no state anywhere in the world that would let a sport event go on where someone's burning someone else with fire.
Not now.
It didn't go.
See,
That is true.
And that's what I knew then at point in time, and I've watched wrestling over time after that, and seen what has happened and stuff. And I'll tell you something that Keith probably knows. So out of Hazel Park, two major wrestlers, Jim Oliveri and Steve Frazier, which Steve Frazier has a street named in his name here.
Yeah.
Steve Frazier was Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler champion. And the wrestling industry approached both of them, and they told them, Steve Frazier's an Olympic champion, and he told him at the point in time, well, what we're going to do, we're going to get you in here, and what you're going to do is you're going to lose to a couple guys, and then we're going to get you going. And Steve Frazier's like, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go there and do what I'm going to do. And it's like, no, you have to do it this way. That's why I call it fake.
And I agree. It's just like throwing a match. I'm going to read Elena's comment, and I'm going to give Jane a chance to totally rebuke everything just because I know you're holding on to it, and I want to hear it. But Elena says, all sports are for entertainment, whether it be WWE or NFL. It's all entertainment. Who cares if it's predetermined? Some people really do care. Mm-hmm. Some people really, they're going for the sport of it. They're going to find out they like the excitement. We didn't even touch on it because we're all such nerds in aspects that sports is not really one of them. for a lot of us, we're not as heavy into them. We may be knowledgeable about them, not as heavy into, so we didn't hit a lot of that. But you go for the entertainment aspect. That's what you're looking for. Brandon has his sports shirt on. So, Jane, I'm going to let you rebunk that because a lot of stuff was said, and I don't want you to think I'm ignoring it. I'm not trying to demean anything you're saying. I want to give you a chance to actually rebut everything that we talked about. So, go ahead.
Okay, here's the thing. So, first off, I guess I want to say, when I brought up this idea of wrestling, when I brought up the idea of the belts, because it was asked of me, I wasn't looking for an argument.
Oh, no.
The second, that I want to say is, I'm a big fan of, yes, like WWE, and a lot of people know about AEW now, but I'm also a fan of a lot of the more independent market. More specifically, I'm a fan of a group called Game Changer Wrestling, or GCW. That was a program that was inspired by ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and now Extreme Championship Wrestling was fucking insane. The things that the wrestlers would do, the idea of the matches were not so much as the idea of what would happen in the story, but what was the craziest thing that someone could do before they hurt themselves actively. And that led to a lot of blading, that led to a lot of barbed wire, that led to a lot of fire, that led to jumping off of balconies. And a lot of things that led to that was the idea of no safety rigs. And yes, now things like the WWE, the whole area around the ring is a pad, right? So there's some sort of safety for those wrestlers. That's not a thing in GCW. I went and saw them at Harpo's around in Detroit. If you haven't been to that area, I highly recommend it. There's some more GCW events, and I'm not a big supporter of it, but another company called Control Your Narrative, which is also going to be around there. That's a different story. But I saw what is called the death match. And the thing about a death match that is so interesting, this is stuff that had happened a lot of in more exotic places like Costa Rica and even in places like Japan. The idea of creating the art by being inflicted with the most pain as possible. Ric Flair was the most notable person to do it in the WWE. But who I saw at GCW, this was a place that was a ring covered in those type of like tube lights that you see in like a hospital. And these wrestlers are actively, even though they're being told this idea of predetermination, this is the person that's going to win. You have this amount of time. Go for it. They don't have a time. Hold on. They don't have a time to really practice this. And the thing is, in events like death matches, with the tube lights, those moments of smashing it onto each other's heads and stabbing it into each other's faces, they're actively doing that. And this is stuff that has been around since the 70s and 80s, but isn't seen prominently in television. Yes, this stuff is all done in an act. It is a soap opera. I made a whole video about the idea that this stuff is from ridiculous storytelling. But the type of things that they decide to do as stunts persons,
before you
as
say
performers...
shut up, before you say shut up, and before you continue, hold on a second. I want to get to a certain aspect. The argument was about the WWE and the WWF. And the argument was that they were fake. And you're steering us to another branch that is obviously more dangerous.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the WWF and the WWE. The WWF had those type of moments with people like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Mick Foley specifically. Mick Foley brought the idea of these type of extreme gimmicks and matches to the WWE. Let me tell you a little bit. This is a very prominent story for big wrestling fans about the Mick Foley
I get
and
that,
Undertaker.
but I want to get to a few other aspects. I wanted you to defend the fake aspects, and you've done that. But I want to get to some other things that people might want to talk about as well. Beyond that, just like I had to skip for video games and stuff like that. But your argument is valid. I think one thing we have to look at is our reactions as well. We like to say things like, well, we don't really get upset or we don't really get heated about it. And clearly we do when the wrong terms are used. But you have to respect that there's certain terms, such as fake, that are not meant as everything they do is scripted bit for bit fake. But you do not really believe their life is in danger. Could an accident happen? Absolutely. but the appeal for wrestling has been about the extreme stunts for
Here's the
lot
issue.
of people.
Here's the issue, and I do want to leave it at this before I get too
Okay,
heated about
that's
it.
fine.
The issue is that every time these wrestlers do go out and compete, it is dangerous. Recently, there was, for the WWE specifically, there was a recent WWE champion and multiple tag team champion, Big E. He was a part of a prominent tag team known as the New Day that consisted of him, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston. He was just in a regular match on SmackDown Live, and one of the competitors did a suplex on him outside of the ring, and it caused him to break his neck. And we're waiting within the next 6 months to know if he will ever compete again in the ring. Every
So
type of
why
match.
can't
It-
it be both?
What do
If
you
your
mean?
defense, why can't it be both? You're admitting that some of the things is stage or that some of the stuff is designed not to hurt them, but at the same time saying people do get hurt. Why can it not be considered a fake thing with
Because-
a risk associated with it that could harm you because you're still in danger? Regular stuntmen are doing fake stunts that they get harmed in. Leonardo DiCaprio. Go ahead. I just want to get off the wrestling as quick as we can. I appreciate it, but because I want to get back to other things that people are fandoms of.
Well, then we can leave it at that. We can leave it at that.
Well,
That's
give me
fine.
1 second to say something.
Go
All
ahead.
right? Everyone that goes out there and plays in professional sports, there's a risk of dying all the damn time. You're playing football, you can get your back broke or your neck broke. You're playing baseball, you can get hit in the face with a baseball and you can die. Soccer, the guys run over each other. Rugby, football. Even
Any sport in
basketball, when the
Europe.
guys jump into the stands. What's his name? He snapped a vertebrae in his back of his back, jumping in the stands trying to save the basketball. There's always a risk of something when you're playing sports, but it's not scripted.
Can I ask? I do have a question for you, Jane, because I want to get back on topic, but I want to use this to get back on topic. Without talking about the events in wrestling, why did you get so fueled? What is the power what are you trying to show the world with your story? And this is really what it boils down to with fandom and where it gets really hard for people. What was the trigger?
I would really rather just leave it at this, please.
No, but I'm saying it's not about wrestling. I don't want you to talk about wrestling. But is it something that hurts you inside that people don't follow with what you follow?
I understand your question. I would like to leave it at there, please.
All right, well, that's fair too. Yes, Brandon.
I think it, like, from my point of view, I think it boils down to we want people to like the things we like.
Right.
And
That's
at
what
the
I
end of the
was
day,
looking
it's just
for.
like when you take someone to a restaurant that you love. Like, you absolutely love this restaurant. You go here as many times a week as you possibly can, and you're like, people come into town, your family comes into town or something, you're like, I'm going to take you to this restaurant. It's my favorite place in the world. And they're like, it's all right. And for some reason, that hurts, like, deep down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never understood why it hurts and everything, because, like, to each their own, absolutely no love lost or whatever. But for some reason, when someone doesn't have the same affection to something that you have the same affection to, it hurts. And it's hard to find the rationale of that other than just the human psyche.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an explanation for it other than it hurts. And I'm sorry, Jane, if I like I said, I appreciate the athleticism in it, but
It's how everybody feels about something, but you made a good point. First, Atlanta Thrashers here says more food for you on that restaurant comment. Good to see Atlanta. It's been a minute on that one. More Pretty Peter Avalon for me. You just walked in. Glad to have you. Drina says that I love wrestling, the fake and the real. And one of the things that you do with fandom, what you said is absolutely right, Brandon. It's because, and I'm sure Jane's the case, my joy of playing video games, her joy of watching wrestling, Jeremy's joy of whatever Jeremy happens to like that day, because he's like definitely a trifecta. But all of our joys become because we want other people to feel that joy within us, and we can't provide that.
Yeah.
We turn to anger.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times. We turn so defensive, and Nikki even, I think, had a small moment of that too.
Hey, now.
In there. Well, we all do, and I do it too.
It was a different level, though, Keith. It was a different
But
level.
I'm saying when people don't see eye to eye in general is what I'm talking about.
No, yeah, you're right. Though,
we turn it to a form of anger.
I think anytime somebody, like, if you take something personal or if it hurts you, how do you, like, express your hurt other than cry, it's anger or cry. It's like, you know.
And that's what can actually harm our cause, though. A lot of people are out there and they don't like things, and Chrono, you and I are kind of on the same page with that, based on popularity sometimes.
Right.
Like if it gets past us, we don't like
You
it
know
because
what?
of the culture related to it.
You know why I say what I say about wrestling? And it's not because I absolutely hate the sport, because I have watched wrestling
I love
since
it.
Keith, like since I was a little girl on Saturday morning cartoons, watching like when who was the dude with all the rubber bands in his freaking beard? Like,
Captain Lou Albano.
yes. Like when it was cartoons and Hulk Hogan and stuff. I dislike wrestling as an adult woman because my husband is a freaking nerd out on wrestling. Jane, you would like my husband and you would like you guys could nerd out on fucking wrestling for hours because it consumes his time. His wrestling's on how many days a week? Like freaking 5, 6, 7 if there's a pay-per-view, and I pay for Peacock just so he has the pay-per-views. Like,
Oh,
what the fuck?
no, they're not pay-per-views anymore. They're premium live events, is what
Right,
WWE
yeah.
called.
New
Okay,
branding,
well,
yes.
Well,
That's much
I
better.
pay for Peacock Premium so my husband can watch these paid live events, whatever it is, once a month or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So that's why I said what I said, because when I say wrestling is fake to him, no offense, but he defends it in the same manner as you do. He hates when I say that, so I say it intentionally when it comes to wrestling,
Well,
not to offend
I don't.
anybody.
I've always done
Well,
it based
well,
on the
let me-
stories. See,
Let
growing
me
up,
say-
my
let me say a couple things. The first thing I wanted to say is, to be completely honest, I didn't even really talk about wrestling this evening, but the belts were brought up.
Yeah,
so,
I know, yeah,
I
but
didn't really want to bring up wrestling. The
But
second
that's the
thing about
topic.
it became the topic.
no fandom.
There's so many other fandoms that I'm into besides wrestling that I wanted to talk about. But since we're on the wrestling topic still, I'm just saying. I didn't bring it up. I'm just saying. For me, the kind of thing that I find insulting about the idea of calling it fake is the fact of seeing a lot of people that I really root for and that I care for and that I support and I send money to getting injured and going through
Sure.
those type of problems. And here's the thing. Yes, I've not been in a wrestling ring myself, but I've gotten to know people who have, and I've gotten to understand why they see the idea of the term fake as an insult
offensive,
to the
yeah.
to the sport, and that's where I am is hearing it as finding it insulting. Though I understand what you guys mean is the definition of your idea of fake, and yes,
Right.
that comes with the scripting. I made a whole
Hence-
video. Hold on, I made a whole video about it. I did. About where I think wrestling is a soap opera, and why I think it's staged, and why I think it's acting.
Well, that's
But there's a beauty to it through through that physicality and through that kind of a physical performance, that circus traveling type of theater that comes with it. But yes, as you're saying, Nikki.
hold on. My husband.
We lost you.
But I think a lot of that comes from, and a lot of that comes on us, like Keith, you and I, where Chrono brought it up earlier of like fandoms have such a way of gatekeeping themselves that it also falls on us on the outside to not, I don't know the right word other than like anti-gatekeep or gatekeeping away from it, where we see this fandom that even though we don't agree with it, we don't want someone gatekeeping. Like I wouldn't want someone gatekeeping Star Wars from me because I never read the comic books.
But
It's
here's my
also I have to look at the flip side of it and say just because I'm not a big fan of it, I don't get to sit here and trash a fandom that I'm not a fan of because I don't get it.
But I'm a fan
If
of
I
it.
don't want my fandom to trash.
But
me
here's my
because I'm not
issue
as in.
that I wanted to get to with it is people change what the word means to make it okay. See, when wrestling first existed way back when, I'm using it to then, the thing was people believed the stories were true. Okay? And that we come to learn, and Jane doesn't know this, you come to learn that all these stories were never true. So wrestling became fake based on that. Jane never lived through that time. of believing all this stuff. She was born into a world where it's common knowledge, so the story and the acting and everything is real. But you also can't take the term fake and change it to mean we're referring to something different fake other than the stories or the fact they're not really in danger. And it falls on both of us because, it does fall on both sides, like you said, Brandon. But I'm calling it fake basically because these stories aren't real. They're not in the danger they are because they couldn't publicize it. However, I've always said it's extremely athletic. It is considered a sport on so many levels. It is dangerous. And those three things are not fake in any way.
But you look at boxing, which is a sport that, for the most part, everyone, and there are always going to be people that are like, oh, boxing is scripted and everything. But we look at boxing as something that there's a huge fandom behind boxing. And you cannot tell me that the Mayweather-McGregor fight wasn't predetermined, and Mayweather and McGregor weren't having a beer the night before going,
That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah, that was my point I was trying to make
earlier.
earlier.
Let's act like we hate each other and go out there and, like, you take the win, I take my money.
Because they're playing the competition. I mean, that's just guy competition when you go in sports. You're right. You're still friends afterwards or stuff like that. Let me get through some of these comments here. I really want to get off of this because the whole point is not to offend anybody. You don't want to hurt anybody, but you want people to understand where you're coming from when you say it, or when you talk about things, or why you're defending what you defend, and Jane did a great job of that defense there, too. Alana says, I like to share stuff, but I like stuff that's just mine, totally off the last 2 cents if I miss something, referring to making people, feel what you feel inside. If you count YouTube, it's on every darn day. Vince will let them say pay-per-views, back to that, with the event one. I think I need to go local medical facility. And Jane is the friggin' champ. Still loves you, Jane, out there. Ron says, hope no one's attacked today. Nobody is trying to attack anybody on there at all. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel bad on there because people do get hurt a lot, as said by Atlanta. We got quite a bit. Atlanta also says, Spider-Man Broadway play. Look how many people got hurt doing that. Totally not fake. But I don't want the argument... Yeah, I don't want the argument to be... The argument wasn't meant to be fake. The argument was meant to be why people don't have the same level of fandom towards it. It wasn't mean to be the argument of whether or not it was fake. It was about why people have the same fandom. Rhonda also says... I'm sorry. Elena says, this is the one I want to get to. It is important to stop people who make fun of others who are fans of something. You guys are doing now to Jane. And nobody was making fun of it. We were talking about our opinions. The problem is here, and I am going to disagree with this, Elena, and I'm sorry to, is that everybody here who said that there was a non-form of realism to the show was attacked as well. Because our opinion is we believe there are aspects that were fake. We were attacked in return. It works both ways.
I think it would come across as attacking Jane if we were like, Jane, you're dumb for thinking it's real.
Right.
I'm not saying that in any sense of the way. Like I mean no absolute harm, and I'm really sorry if it came across that way.
Yeah.
I really didn't mean it that way. It just, and I want to say directly to you, Jane. Like if it did come across like I was attacking you on that, I do apologize. I didn't mean to. And I'm not saying you're wrong for enjoying it. I can appreciate and this is coming from someone who's probably watched about 10 minutes of wrestling in my life.
It's entertaining.
But like I said, I guess I'll leave it at that. I did not mean to come off as attacking, and I'm sorry if it did.
Nobody wants to, and I think that we're more realistically proving the point of the show and what toxic fandom can do to people, and how they can get overheated on something, and how if somebody just believes something differently, regardless which side is right or wrong, because both sides, and in this case on this panel, nobody here was lying or stating a falsehood about anything. Jane's argument wasn't a lie in any way. Brandon's argument, Nikki's argument, Bill's, Jeremy hasn't really said anything on this aspect. But most of them, nobody was lying in their arguments. They were all facts. And that's why it wasn't an attack. We weren't trying to say somebody's dumb. And I don't think you're dumb. I think you should love what you love. I love wrestling. You don't get that. But I accept. I want to go back to Rhonda's comments. Why is one worse fake, but Star Wars is real? I'm in the weeds about this. The point was why somebody might not like it. Not that you're wrong for liking it. I think that's where we got crossed, was because if we think something is not real, you're not entitled to like it. That's not what anybody on the show is saying. We're saying we're not a huge fan or whatever because we see that it's not real. To us, we want more authentic experiences. So when we watch regular sports, we feel that's a more authentic experience. But then again, most of my friends and most people I know, including myself, go to every freaking pay-per-view event they can because it's so entertaining and it's a joy to watch. And it is a soap opera for guys. That's what we called it for like 20, 30 years. Well, everybody now, too. I got a lot of female friends that watch it, too. But it was called a soap opera for guys. Thank you, Elena, back from Rhonda. Lana says wrestler enemies weren't allowed to eat at the same restaurant. If one accidentally showed up, they'd have to start a scene to keep it real, even at the cost of getting arrested. And I do know that. And there was a big story about that, actually, at one point.
I mean, technically, one could argue that wrestling is a sport because, I mean...
100% a sport.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, some of these people, oh my fucking God, Ronda Rousey, if I had her fucking body after giving birth, I'd be making millions, but I'm not.
You got liposuction.
I like people to like what they like. That's what Lance Thrasher says.
Bill, for your muscles? That's
Now, I want to hit the phrase, I like people to like what they like, because that's what Lance Thrasher says. But one thing we don't do is I want people to be able to dislike what they don't. That's one thing that we do as fans a lot of times. And Jane's not the only one guilty, because I'm sure with video game systems or something like that, or certain movies, when somebody says that movie sucks, we go on the defensive over it.
Wow.
Because we want you to like what we like, but we don't want you to dislike it. So it works both ways on that. And that's one thing we got to say. I'm trying to get through these comments. That's why I'm rushing through it, and I'm sorry. Lana says, I remember when people used to have to sneak into a comic book shop like an adult store, and now nerds rule the world. We talked about that earlier. You weren't here for the early part of the show. But we were talking about how it's become commonplace thanks to shows like The Big Bang Theory and certain cartoons and episodes that have come out where it's more widely accepted. I agree around Star Wars is so real. Star Wars is real, but you don't know because you weren't around a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Sorry to be a llama, mammy. Llama. That's okay. I'm fully in support of that, Rhonda.
Elena gave up after the first 3 Star Wars movies, just so you know.
First 3 being which 3? First release?
4, 5,
No,
6.
that's just
she
too
gave
bad.
Up after that. She wouldn't stop. She
That's
wouldn't
fair.
keep watching.
And now, football, yuck, LOL. Heck yeah, I hate eating plants. Who's with me? Yes, I agree. You can like them, America. I forgot you're not. So my ADHD pill wore off, so I'm hyper. Lena says, love you, Jane. We know you do. We love Jane, too. I want to tough those belts. I love Star Wars. Dr. McCoy is my favorite. Atlanta Thrasher. And there he is. I do want to bring up, I don't want to bring it up, but I want to bring it up at the same time. Atlanta Thrasher had put in comments on here about the wrestling thing. I don't want to talk about it, but I want to see the different view that Atlanta Thrasher is acknowledging that the non-realness of the sport and has a different opinion. If it was any other topic, do you think that would make you less of a fan because you view it differently but still enjoy it? And there's no answer because I don't want to get into this anymore. I don't want to go further into the wrestling aspect because it's a very heated topic. But those are two people. Atlanta very much is a fan of wrestling. They talked before on here when Jane was on earlier. We talked about the belts. That was a big thing for Jane. And Atlanta is an agreement of fake. Jane is not. Does one a fan over the other? And the reason I'm asking, not because of the wrestling thing, but with Star Wars, if you don't like the books and you like the movies. Horror movies, if you like, you don't like horror movies if you think Halloween's stupid but love Scream. And stuff like that. Do you have to follow a book to be a true fan? And by the book is what I mean, not an actual book. Can you have a difference of opinion?
Sometimes you read the book, and then after the book's been out for a while, then they already put up the movie up, and the movie doesn't follow the book, so it pisses you off sometimes, and sometimes it's great. So just pick and choose.
I meant you've got to be by the book fan. Like, you have to like
the only
these
thing I got to
aspects.
say is I still don't have my ESV hat that you're wearing. So
We'll go and order it. It's on our website. I forgot. I want to
you
go
owe
back
me
to this
one.
really quick. I love that comment, and I glanced through it so quick I kind of missed it. All right, I love Star Wars. Dr. McCoy is my favorite. All right,
I think
Atlanta.
it goes back
Well, I mean,
to.
it goes to the Star Wars topic of
What
we
is
can
Dr.
disagree,
McCoy's first name?
Yeah.
like I think Keith, you and I disagreed about this on the Star Wars show. Of I think Rey in the new Star Wars absolutely. I don't agree with the way that the Rey storyline played out, and I think you and I disagreed on that. But that
I
didn't
don't
make
think
us
so because I agree with that. I think somebody else in the show did disagree, though.
Someone
I
disagreed
fully
that-
agreed. Yeah, I fully agree. I did not like the way the Rey storyline
that
played out.
the story progression of Rey really did a disservice to her character, where they had the ability to absolutely make her an amazing character with amazing storyline and backstory and character progression and everything, and all of a sudden they just took this nobody that was on this planet that had no training, and 6 months later, or not even 6 months later, a month after learning what a lightsaber was, could stand up to Kylo Ren. And I think they really did her her character a disservice in that. But I know a lot of people, and I think something happened in here that really.
Yeah, we did have a
disagreed with me, and
discrepancy with the story of Rey, but it wasn't me because I'm not a fan of where they took that character at all.
But it doesn't make either myself or the person who disagreed, who thought the other way, any less of a fan. You can have disagreements in the fandom and still understand that everyone's a fan. That might not
I
be
still love
agreed
Star
on
Wars.
it might not be agreed on during the argument of whether but I think at the end of the day, both people are still fans of the.
I think the last Star Wars movie is one of the worst movies made for any conclusion to a franchise, period. Because of what they did. But I still love Star Wars. And some people love that film, and you're not a Star Wars fan because you love the film. Because you're probably the reason the film was made.
I think part of it goes back.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So, if you're a geek for something and you watch it all the time or you do it all the time and stuff like that, as you get older, when or does it change?
That was, I think, the last thing I wanted to hit on here because I wanted to end the show shortly. Is there any topic, is there anything that anybody's been a fan of, and as they got older, they dropped out of that fan base or just found it less interesting?
Sure, like I had those like teenage girl heartthrob like obsessions, and which kind of led me to part of what led me to my love of music. But
Nikki saw me on YouTube.
Do what?
I said Nikki saw me on YouTube, so yeah, it's a change now.
No. It's Bill.
Can I say really quick? I'm sorry. I have to go.
I know you were. I want to say bye to you because I knew you had to leave. And we're ending shortly anyway. I'm going to get through these last comments and I want to ask about them. But thank you, Nikki, for being here. I know you stayed longer than you were originally going to. So, all right, you have a good one. Take care.
Absolutely.
Bye, Nikki.
Bye.
All right, last comments, and I want to go back to what we were talking about with the age thing, if anything changed at that point. Atlanta says, DeForest Kelly is Gregorian treasure. My father was born in his hometown. I love this character. Or Georgian. Okay, Georgian treasure. I totally missed that. I love DeForest Kelly, and Bones is one of my favorite characters. I like his replacement, too, in the new one. It's one of the few characters I thought really captured the original. My grandpa was the world's largest Santa Claus fan, knowing that he himself was Santa. He enjoyed Christmas so much that he came to our house at 3 a.m. Christmas morning and woke us up. Mama hated that. He cried at every Christmas movie, too. That's beautiful, though. That is really beautiful. I guess if you're going to be a fan of something crazy like that, Santa Claus is not a bad route to go. I was like, guy does a lot. That ties right into getting older as a kid, though, and not being such a fan anymore. I love your beard, Thresher. Just want to say, I'm coloring it in. You're Santa Claus to me. All right, so Brandon, anything you grew out of? You can still secretly love it.
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess the biggest one that comes to mind is one that we already talked about was Pokemon. I grew out of it. I mean, there's still every time they release a new game, I look at the full Pokédex and I look at like the new designs and everything. But will I buy the game and play it? Probably not.
Fair. Jane, anything you think you grew out of at that point? Still pretty much a fan of most of it. And that's pretty much it too. You're muted right now. And what about you, King?
Over the years, I grew out of my underwear because everything started getting bigger and bigger all the time. So it's like,
Were you really that big of a toxic fan towards your own underwear? Were your underwear that toxic?
I
It's
had
a
to
lovely
change
brand.
the style and the size and the cup and everything like that. But yeah, no, I mean, not saying that I watched wrestling when I was a little kid. I actually went down to Kobo, saw big time wrestling. All right, when you get older, and I'm sorry to go back into this, but that and then TV shows that I watch. I mean, I watched Scooby Doo
Oh,
when I was young, when
Oh,
it
yeah.
first came out. You know, and so my Saturday mornings were, I got up in the morning, and I lived right off of 8 Mile in Hazel Park, and I got up in the morning and got a half a gallon of ice cream, and sat in front of the TV and ate that half a gallon of ice cream, watched cartoons, and then went out the door and started playing baseball. And when
Ghost
I
Island
decided I loved
movie,
baseball,
MVP.
when I decided I loved baseball, then I said, fuck the cartoons. They didn't give a shit. Now, I went back home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to watch the Braves Ghastly, but, you know.
What'd you say really quickly, Brandon?
I said the Ghost Island the Ghost Island Scooby Doo
Scooby-Doo
movie
movie?
MVP.
Before I get to Jeremy on that, I saw some wrestlers play with Pogs today. No joke, it was Ethan Page. Did anybody ever get into Pogs?
Gosh.
It was like a between generation thing for Pogs for me. So
I have about 150 to 200 of them sitting here in my house, which brings me back to Cronus. All right, if you still collect anything like that, comic books or anything like that, before you leave here, if you want to come see what I got, boom.
That could be a gold mine.
I'd abandon my son for a bowl of Fruity Pebbles and cartoons. So would I. I totally know exactly what you mean for that. And what about you, Chrono? Because you are the plethora of geekdom. You said at the start of the show you're a little bit of everything. So is there anything that you kind of lost?
I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or it just isn't hitting the same, and like the stories aren't as good. But there's this part of me that video games aren't doing it get used to for me. And there's this part of me that thinks that maybe it's just like, I feel like I'm getting to that point where it's like, back in my day, man, these games, they kept my so much better back then. I worry that that's where I'm at. And I don't know, just games takes a lot for a game to just suck me in. As what it is, and God, that just sounds wrong. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I get that because like when I even not even long ago, like even like 4 or 5 years ago, I'd get a video game and I'd dump like the last game that I really dumped a lot of time into was like Monster Hunter. Oh, I like Iceball. I had 80, 90, 100 hours into that game. And in the past few years, I'll find this new game, and I'm like, this is really cool. I want to buy it. I watch all the previews and all the tutorials and all of I go deep dive into all the mechanics and everything, and I buy the game, and I spend about
And then you don't
6
play
hours playing it, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah,
I agree. Well,
exactly. Same thing has happened to me lately.
That would have been actually what I said. I was going to bring it back to myself with the same thing. I definitely think video games, and in a sense, some movies and things I was a fan of, movies, cartoons, because I'll try watching them again. As far as TV shows, for sure. Like I'll try watching He-Man or something like that I was obsessed with as a kid, and they're just stupid. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles still awesome, but some of the older stuff is and
Steve
video
was actually
games.
going to say that he quit watching porn, and then he's going live action.
No, I still watch porn. I would not abandon my friend. Gargoyles was yours. You go back and you're like,
Gargoyles, I loved it, and it got put on Disney Plus and everything, and I got about 6 episodes in, and I'm like, I'm moving on.
I think probably a lot of the kids shows.
I own all the Gargoyles and all the Thundercats videos. Oh,
Well, there's something to be said when it's new and fresh too. When it comes out, Gargoyle is a good example. Some do stand the test of time, some don't. But video games are a huge one for me, and I agree with the video games because I try to play some of the older games. Or I used to be such a proponent when it came to like the old school Japanese RPGs, turn-based, and I start playing them now, and I'm like, God, I remember this. This isn't as exciting and enthralling as I recall. And it does take a lot more. Now I see these retro RPGs, I don't want to touch them. They're always coming out. They're not the same. Except for Evil Land, which was really cool. Evil Land 2. That was really cool. But most of them you don't want to touch, and it does. It takes a lot. It takes something gripping because we don't want to admit that we evolved as well.
And there is that. There is that element of have our tastes changed, have our understanding of the material or the genre changed that is coloring our expectations or coloring our experience. I mean, definitely like horror movies, it's especially when you compare like the original Scream with one of the later Screams or even the Nightmare on Elm Streets, did we like it back then because they were good, or do we don't like them now because what we know now in terms of filmmaking makes the older films less less impactful.
Another thing that's really brought up, and I didn't even think about this. Atlanta said, "Oh, by the way," I thought I said corn, not porn. Sign me up, corn in a cup for the win. Corn rocks. But he responded, "This one actually makes a lot of sense to me. I used to love JRPGs, but I don't got time for all the grinding and reading anymore." And that actually probably plays more of an impact than I get credit for, because I will still want to paint myself as a person that likes to read and likes the stories that I said on there. And we don't have the time. Like, we could spend all night and morning, playing a video game, just grinding for levels and stuff like that. Now we're like, fuck, it's 10 o'clock. I could get up in the morning, go into bed, get up, go to work, maybe pick up for an hour. So a game that used to take us 4 or 5 days to beat, now would take us 4 or 5 months because we don't have time for it.
Well, it's like
and
trying to replay Skyrim.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I actually
did. Stop.
All right, and finally, I'm now cheating at Final Fantasy games just so I can finish the ones I missed out on. Well, you know what? I can see it because you don't want to do all that grinding. It makes sense to me. I think that's pretty much where we should probably stop. We covered so many forms, but we're kind of there's a lot we didn't cover. Like I said, foods and restaurants and traveling. That people whether it be countries or something like that. There's so much stuff we could hit. We didn't really hit sports at all, which I was really surprised at. Because that's where a lot of
I left it alone. Other than the wrestling. So
I get you, but that's where
Just
a lot
don't
of it
come
is
after me about
sports
the
come.
Lions because I'll get upset.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And see, that's the exact same thing right there. I don't know how. I'm gonna bring it up really quick for that. How does sports have such a larger impact than anything? And I'm not saying a bigger per issue impact, but global base. Like, sports are so passionate. Sports fans are so passionate, so large.
Because, like, I've tied a portion of my personality around being a Lions fan.
Right. Okay. I agree.
Tailgating. They all get drunk, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, that's our team." Wow,
greatest thing ever.
But you said you tailed your personality after being a Lions fan. I don't think of you as a loser.
Thank you. But but still, being a Lions fan and being that dedicated to a team that I know is going, like, I went for Halloween one year at Ferris. I went as a Stockholm Syndrome survivor, and I wore a Lions jersey with a Ferris hat. And I'm like, these guys keep stealing money from me, and these guys keep letting me down every year, and I still keep coming back. And
no one understood it.
And I did have to explain it a lot. But yeah, like, you tie a portion of your personality around the fact that, like, this is my team and I will stand behind them until the day I die, and to be let down by it and to still stick beside it, to say this is the group that I'm loyal to. And when people come after that, I guess as a Lions fan, I'm used to it by now. It doesn't hurt as much, and I'm used to ridiculing, and I'm used to ridiculing myself about it. But
Well, yeah, my brother's a Lions fan too, and I'm actually am too, but I'm a Lions fan as far as my home team.
yeah,
And I am a full-fledged fan of. I'm going to stick up for my home team. I love my home team, with the exception of
Right.
Pistons, because I'm
That's the
not a
thing.
basketball
So
person.
sports, you stick up for your home team.
Yeah.
It's not being a nerd. It's not being someone just like, oh, I gotta have this. I gotta go there. And
There
like I
are
said,
sports
you go
nerds
there
out
and you
there.
party, you drink, and everything, and you're there. So
God, look at the growth of fantasy football. I mean, if you want obsessive fans,
I
all of a
will
sudden
never
you've got
understand
fucking
that one.
spreadsheets,
I had a lot of fun with fantasy football.
PowerPoint presentations.
he's right.
I had a
Oh,
lot of fun
I
with fantasy
know.
football, and it would always irritate me playing with people that didn't like it. There was one time many years ago that I brought my girlfriend into it at the time, and she only picked her team based off of like the top 10, which one she thought was the most attractive, and that's how she picked her team. And it
You
irritated the
probably
rest
won.
of us to no end. And the fact that she did really well that
Yep.
season, we were like, I don't know.
Atlanta says he's the most non-toxic hockey fan on earth, and which we're talking about. I'm a huge Predators fan, but I don't care who it is. Twitch used to show women's hockey on here until they struck a Canadian TV deal. And I love hockey is my favorite sport on there, but I'm not, as he also says, sports nerds are real. If you know at least 3 stats, you're a nerd, and that is true. Sports nerds are equally, and a sports fan I think can pretty much pummel any other fan out there for the most part. Like, because a lot of sports
car
fans,
guys.
car guys, that's a good one too. Cars is another one that definitely could, because their devotion is just everywhere, everything. There's no escaping of it. But I do think it's important. But I used to tell people, like, sports is kind of created for the non-achiever. Like, it is a way for the average, everyday person that never got to be that sports star in school or college or never got to make it to associate with something and see them achieve a dream.
I feel
And
attacked.
something everyone. Huh? Why?
I feel it.
Well, because the Lions don't win?
No, for my failed high school and college athletic career, latching on to pros to be like, please succeed for me because I couldn't do it.
But people do that. People that don't make it in music attach themselves to certain artists because of their story. People that don't make it in movies attach themselves to certain directors because of how they present things. People that don't make it in different aspects of life often do attach themselves to something. And sports is broad because, especially growing up, everybody wanted to be in sports. Everybody wanted to achieve something. The sports guys got all the women, the girls, stuff like that. Being in sports was awesome. And you don't make it, and you can relate to it. And I do think they love that feeling of competition, but as you grow older, even if you made it in sports, you can no longer do it. So there's a lot of that, I think, that comes into it, too. And I think that's why sports are so strong, because they're kind of reliving golden years, and no other like fad is reliving your golden years the same way as sports are, because it hasn't changed.
But it's irritating to watch it at the same time because, especially like college basketball, I hate pro basketball, but college basketball I absolutely love. Like, I grew up in North Carolina. My mom went to Duke for medical school. I will be a Duke fan until the day I die. But to watch these Duke players or just any college basketball guys and watch them do the things they do, and they're like, yeah, he's only 19 or 20, and I'm like, you can stop telling me that now because
Why do you got an A on your sweatshirt, though?
Oh, I was down in Atlanta for a trade show, and we were staying at a hotel right outside the Braves stadium, and I was like, I want a sweatshirt.
Atlanta says my high school had the largest losing streak in football for our state, so I didn't even care if our team lost. I got to watch hockey. That's how I feel about the Red Wings. When they were doing good, when they were doing bad, Red Wings are my team. And I think Red Wings is probably the only team that if I didn't live in Michigan, I'd probably still be a huge fan of.
I'm a Hurricanes fan, even though I don't live in North Carolina anymore.
Yeah, and I think for me it'd be hockey, it'd be the Red Wings. As far as I'd probably, if I lived somewhere else, I probably wouldn't pick the Lions. If I lived somewhere else, I probably wouldn't pick the Tigers. But I think Red Wings I would. Oh my God, grease monkeys are the worst. It's a family business for you, so you know it. You know it. Car guys, and I can't skate due to my feet bone structure, so it's magical to me. Go Canes. All right, so I guess that's going to basically cover most of it. I think we've, I caught that feet. Basically covered it all. I want to take a moment, of course, to thank everybody in the chat. It was kind of fun talking about a lot of this stuff. I really enjoyed it, but you have to be so careful. I realize on this show, and I'll get to it, that there was a member that we really upset apparently, and it wasn't for that point that we were trying to. It could have happened to any one of us of any topics we were very passionate about and we liked. You have to be careful with talking to fans because you don't want to destroy them, you don't want to hurt them, bring them down, but you also want to get your point across. So it takes both sides. Pardon me, King?
I said it happens to me all the time.
Yeah. And you get passionate because you want to bring your point, you want people to understand you, but at the same time, you don't want to hear it because you know the opposite truth, and it works the opposite direction too. Because at the same time, you're defending what you like, you know the truth. So you got to be careful. You got to respect other people. It's okay if people don't like what you like. It's okay for the reasons not to like. It is not okay to down somebody in particular for not liking what you like, to insult them. Can you accidentally hurt somebody? And I think we did. Yes, you can. But it's not right to intentionally do it. It's not right to tell somebody that they're stupid for liking what they like. 'Cause we like things individually at all times. We like to be individuals. We got to find a medium, and if you ever start to get stressed out when you're talking to people like that, you got to take a step back and wonder, if it was your topic and somebody was on you, how would you react? You know, are they founded or something? But at the same time, don't attack people because they have reasons for it. So we have to get along here. There's nothing wrong. A Scream movie did say one line that I loved in the new Scream movie, was how can fandom be toxic when it's about love? And as much as I have my problems with that movie, I loved that line. Because it's true, fandom is based on love. It is based on love for franchises, love for music, love for events, love for toys, love for childhood, love for memories, love for parents, love for family, love for anything, love for sports. You cannot create hate based off something created out of love. And if we could all understand and learn that and be a little bit better about it, we'd probably get along a lot better and understand each other more. Brandon, I'm glad to have you on here. When it comes to a nerd topic or Star Wars or anything like that, I'm going to be calling you. You know that, and I'm going to say the same thing to Chrono when it comes down to him. So, other point of view, but you also often engage with us a lot in the chat. Otherwise, I appreciate that too. You have a good way of seeing from other sides, and I'm going to say with you and Elena, I think it's dangerous territory, but you guys handle it well. I mean, I really like the way you guys are on here. I love to hear what you have to say in every show, and this show was no exception. Glad you got to be here live to do it.
Thanks for the invite. It was awesome today.
Yes. Jane, with the deepest sincerity, no offense meant whatsoever, and no harm towards you in any way. I do appreciate everything you have to say. Definitely, we do have a difference of opinion on what we think about things, but we're allowed to, and I respect your opinion. I do apologize if any way I did offend you, but I still like having you on here. I like what you have to say. I think you're an asset to this show when you're on it, so I want to thank you for being here. And again, I think today was no exception. So, all right, I think that was a nod. Chrono, my true geek god. All right, and you are, and I love you for that. I wish we would have gotten to delve a little more into the movies, especially when it comes to like horror movies and stuff like that, because I know we see eye to eye on a lot of that stuff. And I love your shirt. I'm glad you were here. We'll definitely have to hit it again. I'm sure we're going to have other movie topics coming up. I want to thank you for being here. I love what you have to say. I love your view, because you get that retail view, and you get to see the extreme fans that go beyond you and the lesser fans that go below you, so you just see it all. So I want to thank you for taking your time to be here. Absolutely loved having you on here.
Thank you for having me. Real quick story. I remember one time I was working FYE at Oakland Mall, and I walked out. It was on my break. I walked down to GameStop, and GameStop, gamers can be fanboys. And I swear to God, there was this one moment where I walked in, and two fanboys were having a discussion. Could Goku beat up Superman? And I just had to nope out. I'm just like, no, I will not participate in this conversation. I will not be a part of this. I'm out.
I like it. EB Games. Who remembers Babbage's? Babbage's, EB Games, Funkoland, GameStop. And Bill, gosh, I don't remember you being having the fandoms you did. I had no idea you were into like rocks and fossils. I honestly find that so cool. Because I absolutely, when I was growing up, I was huge into rocks and shells and fossils and stuff like that. It fascinated beyond belief. You are always surprising me with new information, Bill. I appreciate
it. I've lived 17 different lives, Keith, as you know. So, but I want to say,
decades.
I meant no disrespect to anyone here on the show. It's all about your opinion. If I pushed my opinion more so than I should have, I apologize. Keith, you know I love you, and you know who I am and how I am. I tell you wrong when you're on trivia, and you still tell me you're right. So,
yeah, it kind of goes with the flow.
But if Jeremy, like I said, I got comic books I need to get rid of, and the number one I can say right now is I got Youngblood #1. And I got a whole bunch more. I don't know where he's at and where he lives, but I'm in Hazel Park, and if he can come down here, Keith knows I'm selling out my mother's estate and stuff like that, so I got to get rid of a bunch of stuff. But if you want to come down here and buy, I'll sell you cheap. I got about 100 in the box.
Right. Well, looks like you guys got some deals to make. All right.
Some wheeling and dealing. All right.
I want to thank everybody who engaged us live during the show. We love having you on here. I appreciate it very much. Everything you have to say is very important. It counts very much. Those are his mom's comment. Heck yeah.
And where's my hat?
Order it. It's on the website.
You owe me one from before when you were giving this shit away, so thank you very much.
I didn't give hats away. I gave shirts away. Don't forget to.
Hat, though.
Well, then that was your fault, wasn't it? I was giving away shirts. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow to Your Shoulder Voice. Let me finish here. On YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. We bring you new shows every Sunday and Wednesday at 7 here. Wednesdays are our topic shows where we pick a topic and talk about it. And Sundays are open forum. However, this Sunday is Mother's Day. I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. I have to actually work a wedding, so I will not be able to do the show in either way on this Sunday.
Oh, again, you're not doing a show. Holy shit.
Oh, God, King. Oh, your connection's loose. It's not. Oh, okay. Now we love you. Yeah, but we won't have a Mother's Day show, but I also have to work. That's the main reason for it. But we will be back Wednesday, and we've had enough. This is supposed to be a little more lighthearted than it ended, but we had a little more fun in the last couple topics. For our next topic, not so much. We're going to talk about being mortal. This is a big one. As you grow older and you start to realize your mortality, or you lose the people around you, and you realize what mortality truly means, how does it affect you? This is going to be a deeper topic. We do want to.
Am I going to get paid for the show?
If you're still alive, yeah. Okay. I was like, so we will be here for that, though. We do those deep topics. We try to split them up for you because we know sometimes the deep ones are hard to watch, but we are going to talk about that. And if you have questions, many people do fear death. Many people fear those dying around them. We're going to talk about that. It'll also be actually my mom's birthday. He passed away. So I'll definitely have a little emotion there, too. So we'll be discussing that. Look forward to it. It's still a good time because no matter what we're talking about, we try to throw laughter in, and we try to make sure that you're still welcome at any time, no matter how deep the topic.
And then talk about the sex show in the middle of it, yeah.
Know about what you're going through, and Bill bring up, damn it, Bill. God, why'd you have to mention the sex show?
Got a drink.
To be fair, I did think, when you introduced Bill and he brought up the sex show, I did drink.
I did too.
That is true. The timing was. They didn't even know, yeah.
Yeah, I was like...
I've actually been pretty good about it. Now, the night of the sex show, when I say that, then boom, there you go. So.
The Farmers Only page. Okay, yeah, you got to be on that sex show there. All right, so I want to thank everybody for being here. I had a great time. Don't forget you can reach out anytime you want to, going to our website or our Facebook, our Meta page out there, and you can talk to us. If you do it through the website, you can actually do it anonymously if you want to. Just need somebody to talk to you. You're going through something. There's no problem that's off limits. There's nothing like that. Everybody deserves a voice. Everybody deserves to be heard, and everybody deserves an opinion. So keep that in mind when anybody's talking to you or you're bringing up anything with anybody else, because we're all in this together. So I want to thank you again for being here. Thank you, everybody, for the chat. We love having you, and we will see you all again next Wednesday. Have a great night. Thank you for joining us here at Your Shoulder Voice. Bye.
Bye.
When you're alone and feeling down, and you're 10 feet underground, when you're so deep you're about about to drown when you're in the lost and found. 'Cause heartaches only last a day. Ooh, but your heart will never fade away. Go out and find your way. Don't let them take your soul away. Not a week, not a single day. Hold true to what you wanna be. Never let go, and here's the key. Be you, yeah, only you. Only you. Be you, yeah, only you. Only you.
I've got to say, we wouldn't have had an after show if not for this comic, because I was about to just put up the logo and not do an after show tonight, and then this comic came through, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're gonna stay on a little longer. So
I just
perfect,
like the moist
perfect
comment as we were
timing.
fading into credits.
Yeah. I try to put them on there if I can. So that was it was actually a really good show. It really displayed and showcased a lot of stuff. So you all did great. So thank you. Everybody did great. So I appreciate such a fake smile. There you go. That's a little better. Okay. You are still loved,
All right.
my friend.
All right, so question. So the Brandon that's here, that's Elena's
Not
husband,
the original.
right?
That's Elena's husband, yes.
But he's the tall guy, right?
Yes, he's very tall.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought, but then it was like, he didn't look like the little Brandon guy. So I was
No.
like, all right, I'll just wait till the end.
Because I'm
We have
sitting
to-
down. If it's
We still have no point of reference, really, though, so that doesn't help.
No one wants to see you stand up and show your penis, all right? Sit back
Hey!
down.
I don't mind
kept my
seeing
pants
it.
on this time.
I want to see it all. If it's going to be naked, I want to see it. I'm just saying, I don't care who it is.
Keith, are you working tomorrow? Are you
I
working at the show tomorrow?
am. Or I've got karaoke tomorrow, yes.
Yes. Okay.
If that's what you're
So I'm
thinking.
thinking about it. I don't know what's
Elena.
happening.
Oh, God, you've
All
got to
right,
come up. I haven't
Jeremy,
seen you forever.
you want comic books?
Elena's usually sitting at that desk when she does this.
Look,
I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't
saw.
know
I
where
see
you
the little
live.
vanity thing. That's what I was
Simon
looking for
Hayes
behind
Park.
you.
Well, that's the cool thing. So, real quick, story time. Don't mind the.
No
don't
one
mind
wants
the
to
mess,
listen to you, Brandon. All right, we already talked about you. I'm talking to
Story time. Go ahead.
This,
Go ahead. We're still
her
here,
little-
Brandon.
Her little thing that's a
Yeah,
vent.
Puerto
So she
Ricans,
bought
I
this
tell you.
mirror and it doesn't fit on her desk. Like if she sits in this chair, it's too low. So we 3D printed her this at work, and it's this little
Nice.
riser that lifts
That
it up.
is not a
and
mirror,
it's got
that is
drawers
vanity.
and everything for her stuff. And
Oh, sweet. That's pretty cool. That's really nice of you. That's why she
No,
married you. Okay.
not that you're taking
hope
advantage
there's
of the supplies that you have at work.
we make it.
Shush.
We make the
You did
material.
good. You did good the whole
so
show.
It's relatively cheap.
The dog has to go outside.
And we have
That's the
big,
dog
like
out.
$200,000 printers that
The
just
dog's
sit
been
there and
outside. The
they
dog
do
just
job
wants
on themselves.
attention. That's why the dog's getting attention.
Well, the dog doesn't have a hat. That's why. Same thing. I don't have a hat. So
The dog would eat
Um,
the hat. Would you eat the hat?
Well,
probably if you gave me a hat,
Depends.
but you wouldn't know that. So, Jeremy, do you want to come see me get comic books?
I will have to. We'll have to see. Only because I am in that state of unemployment, and I am trying to not spend money frivolously. and
Well, what I can do is we can barter.
okay.
Don't do it. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Shut up, Keith.
I'm just saying. Stop me.
Shut up, Keith.
I don't know what you're talking about.